On the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship schedule, 4 races stand out. A quartet of the longest, toughest, and best-known events in the sport. 4 races that offer a rich purse to the top finishing teams in all 4 classes of competition. The Tequila Patrón North American Endurance Cup. Race 1, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, featured hair-raising finishes in both the prototype and GT divisions. Race 2, the Mobile 112 Hours of Sebring, tightened up the standings in Prototype and GT Le Mans, while the Prototype Challenge and GT Daytona class leaders enjoyed hard-earned breathing space. Today is Patrón Cup Race 3, the 6-hour summer classic at historic Watkins Glen International. An event boasting more than 60 years of history, and a race sure to provide the kind of drama that has become synonymous with this inaugural TUDOR Championship season. A bumper crop of cars from the world's leading brands are ready for action, including both prototype and GT machines, manned by drivers fresh off lessons learned just 2 weeks ago at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It all happens now, live from Watkins Glen on Fox Sports 1. Welcome to a beautiful day at Watkins Glen International, where the promoters say we'll have the biggest crowd for sports cars in decades here at one of the world's greatest tracks. It's the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen, and it's saying something when you talk about largest ever crowds, because racing has been going on here in the Finger Lakes region of Upper New York State for 6 decades. 6 full hours of live coverage coming your way. Welcome to the world-renowned Watkins Glen International. As you see, less than 13 minutes to go to the start of this 6-hour race. And with that, hello everyone, I'm Bob Varsha along with Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader. This is a very special event. For the first time since round 2 of the Patrón North American Endurance Cup, we have all 4 classes of cars in the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship on track racing together. But on this track, that's a very different ball of wax. Let's talk a little bit right now about the Endurance Cup. Here are the points in the prototype category. And as you can see, they are very, very close. Action Express, who have won this race for the last 2 years, just 1 point ahead of the O2 from Chip Ganassi Racing. And Calvin, with all of the drivers coming to this race from all over the world, this is the end of a very busy month for these teams.
Absolutely, Bob. This is the biggest month of the year for sports car racing globally. For some of the teams and drivers competing at the 24 Hours of Le Mans 2 weeks ago, some of them went on to compete at the place they call the Green Hell, the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in Germany, and now is back to the U.S. for the 6 Hours of the Glen. Imagine what it's been like for some of those drivers, Jerome Bleekemolen, Richard Westbrook, guys like that. International travel, 54 hours of racing in 15 days. They are wiped out and exhausted before the day even starts here. And Dorsey, Watkins Glen, it really doesn't give you any rest. It is really going to push you to your physical limitations.
Yeah, and remember, the prototype cars have been given additional downforce. That downforce makes the car physically more demanding to drive. Also, a lot of traffic. It's the most cars here since 1984. Some 53 cars start here today. It'll keep you busy, no doubt about it. It's going to be a hot one. 90 degrees, high humidity, and a 30% chance of rain before this day's done. So that's a lot to deal with.
There's an awful lot to talk about over the next 6 hours, so we hope you'll join us here on Fox Sports 1 for all of it. Right now, let's hear about a few more items on our checklist. Here's Brian Till in the pit lane.
Well, Bob, in the prototype category, the competition has never been tougher, and with all 4 classes back here this weekend, expect the prototype drivers to be very aggressive. And we saw that aggressiveness boil over at the last round in Detroit as Ricky Taylor and Joao Barbosa engaged in an intense battle to the end, leaving scars and hard feelings for both teams and drivers. Now, 6 hours at the Glen, well, it's always difficult, and the traffic will make that even more difficult this year. To win here more than once, it's an exceptional feat, and for Action Express, they're looking for their 3rd win in a row. But with the cars carrying more downforce this year, the physical loads on the drivers will be massive. Last year, Christian Fittipaldi was completely spent after his win here, and with the increased physical challenge presented this year, the word endurance is especially poignant. But the team to beat this weekend could be Oak Racing in their Morgan Nissan. They've already experienced many firsts this weekend. This is the team's first visit to the track, the first time that a P2-based prototype has raced here, and the first time that Alex Brundle has driven here. And of course, they qualified first. So could this be the first win for them in the TUDOR Championship? We'll find out.
That's the prototype category. Now let's talk about Prototype Challenge. Spec cars, in other words, they're using the same chassis, engines, and tires throughout the field. And there you see a little bit of a gap in the Patrón Endurance Championship standings for Core Autosport. Keep in mind there are as many as 10 points available today, so those standings could close up dramatically. With more on Prototype Challenge, here's Darren Law.
Well, guys, there is no shortage of drama in the PC class. Yesterday, in the final practice session before qualifying, the 08 car of Alex Tagliani spun off course. When he returned back to the track, he came across and hit the 85 car of Chris Miller, taking them both out of contention for the day. Luckily, overnight, they were able to repair those cars, get them back out, but they're both going to have to start at the back of the grid. As far as at the front of the grid, Colin Brown put in a great qualifying effort, qualified on pole for Core Autosport. Now, these guys have won 3 of the last 4 rounds of this series. They're coming in with a lot of momentum, and 2 of those 3 rounds were Daytona and Sebring, which count towards the Patrón Endurance Cup. If they can win the next 2, these guys have a chance to take the Grand Slam and win it all.
All right, thanks very much, Darren. And keep in mind, there's a $300,000 purse involved in the Patrón Endurance Cup. We talked about the prototype classes. In a moment, we'll talk about the GT categories, including GT Le Mans, which gave us an amazing finish back in May at Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca in California. Stay with us.
This is the battle. Alblin's going to force the issue.
Oh, he's
right
there.
Oh, look at this.
Get together
Teddy gives
here.
him no room. He's over in the AstroTurf. He can't get grip there.
That's bull. He just tried to take me out. The last lap, you got to get on the inside of him.
This is going to get ugly right here. He might make that run at the top of the hill.
There's
Oh,
a tap. Love tap there.
He's got one corner, Cal. You know what is going to happen down here?
Going to go for it. And he defends the inside line. Alblin goes
There's the
back.
rub.
Alblin rubs him. He's through.
Good job, Bill. Way to do it. Great job, B2. Now, I'm going to head over and punch him in the nose.
Well, that punch was never thrown, but that was some great action at Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca. I think we'll see more of that today, Cal.
Well, I think so. You could hear Alblin was really fired up in the car. The battle is intense. It will continue.
Now let's talk about the GTLM category on the Patrón North American Endurance Championship. Couldn't be tighter. 6 teams from 4 different brands covered by a handful of points. There'll be points awarded at the halfway mark and at the finish today, so these standings could well change also. Now let's get back down to Brian Till with more on GTLM.
Well, to realize just how important the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen is on the worldwide endurance racing stage, look no further than the GTLM category. In fact, at least one driver from the top 5 finishing GTLM cars at Le Mans is competing here today, including GTLM class winner Giancarlo Fisichella. He'll drive this weekend in his Risi Competizione Ferrari with another Le Mans competitor, Pierre Caffer. And the competition in GTLM is just as competitive here as it was at Le Mans. 4 different manufacturers represented in the top 5 in qualifying, including the 93 Dodge SRT Viper that'll roll off 5th in class. And if you're a Viper fan, you'll recognize the Viper red and racer white paint scheme that will carry the cars for the remainder of the season. It's the same paint scheme that the cars carried to victory at the Rolex 24 and the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2000 and to ALMS championships in 99 and 2000. But to win this weekend, everyone in GTLM is going to have to get by 2 very quick BMW Z4s. Andy Prio qualified the 55 that he shares with Bill Auberlen on pole for the first time in TUDOR competition. And with 3 podium finishes in the last 4 races, the 1 podium spot missing is the top step for those drivers. After the pushing and shoving that we saw at the end of the most recent GTLM event at Mazda Raceway, it should be apparent that Bill Auberlen is not going to let anything stand in the way of a victory here, not even a Porsche.
All right, thanks very much, Brian. Now our 4th and final class in competition here over the next 6 hours, GT Daytona, or GTD. There you see the standings. Again, a bit of a gap opened at the top.
It's a big game, eh, Motorsport? They started off the year with a win at Daytona, runner-up finish at Sebring. That's a big point spread right now.
Let's get more on GTD now with Darren.
GTD is ultra competitive. There's also 4 manufacturers in the top 5 in qualifying. And because of this intensity, it creates incidents. This year at Daytona, the 45 car of Flying Lizard and the 555 car of the Ferrari got together. That ultimately decided the winner of the 24-hour. Our final round at Daytona, the last round that we had, those 2 cars got together again. Both ended up in the wall. Both cars are fast. Both cars run at front. Let's hope they don't get together again this weekend. As far as the front of the grid, the manufacturer that stands out is Porsche. Lee Keen of Alex Job Racing qualified on pole with that car. The car's been fast. They're really quick. They stand a good chance. They've been fast all weekend. And really, when you've got Alex Job behind you, those guys have done so much endurance racing. They're definitely a contender for the win here.
No question about it, Darren. First pole for Porsche in GTD this year. Now let's take a look at the glorious Watkins Glen International Circuit with our Mazda track map, Doris.
Well, we're running the long course here, and that course, of course, is 11 turns, 3.4 miles, 3 really hard brake zones. Here in turn 1, again before the inner loop right there, and the toe of the boot down this way. You want to watch those all day. There's going to be action.
Now for our Patrón track description, we asked one of the Patrón drivers to tell us about the portion of the track that he thinks is most significant.
Hi, Johannes Vanover back here. Car number 2, ESM Patrón prototype car. We're at lovely Watkins Glen. We're at the S's, and I brought you here to the S's because it's single file only. Every class of car here, GTD, GTLM, Prototype Challenge, and the prototype cars are flat through here, but it's one lane. So in order to have a good race here, you have to be patient here, especially the faster cars like the prototype cars. One mistake in the S's, and you'll create a huge bottleneck, and it's a place where everybody has to respect one another on the racetrack.
And we thank Johannes van Overbeek for giving us that insight. Now let's talk about our Tudor keys to victory at the Sahlen 6 hours.
Well, objects in the mirrors are closer than they appear. For the GTD cars, the prototype cars are coming. They are coming fast in the turns that Dorsey mentioned. Eye on the clock. Patrón Endurance Cup points awarded at the finish, but also at the halfway mark, so that's critical strategy there. And fresh horse at the end. Some of the teams have elected for a 2-driver lineup. They have to manage that very carefully.
As you can see, we have lots of onboard cameras, 16 in all, including some new angles. You can get behind the wheel with one of your favorite drivers. Go to foxsports.com/motor for the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship onboard pass. Onboard video streams. Right now, the green flag is in the air, and we are ready to go racing. That's the 6 hours at the Glen.
Wow, young Alex Brundle was ready to go, but so was Barbosa in the Action Express car. You see Valiente log up briefly.
He's got a good run around the outside that carries momentum with it. He should be able to clear and take that second spot headed up the hill.
What a scramble at the start of a 6-hour race.
Unbelievable stuff. Look at this. Johanna said it's a single line through here. Not at the start, boys.
Oh, my gosh.
You'd like it to be a single line, but that's not happening.
Look at this.
This is
Here comes Ricky Taylor. What a start for him. He's up to 3rd. Qualified in the 6th spot.
This is what I talked about right here. This brake zone's a good passing opportunity, and they'll use it every lap they can.
You had a look at the unique Delta Wing car, one and only, running in the prototype class.
On board here with young Alex Brundle, trying to follow in the footsteps of his father. Martin had such a successful sports car career. He's one of the best in the business on cold tires, but he's running the P2 configuration prototype machine. It's a little lighter weight. It doesn't generate the tire temperature as quickly, Dorsey.
First time through the toe of the boot, and this is where you really got to watch that cold tires. The pressures aren't quite up, and you can light the corner, light the tires up there and have trouble on that first lap. Everybody clean.
Now, one thing to keep in mind through the 6 hours is that when the Rolex Grand Am Series and the American Le Mans Series presented by Tequila Patrón were separate series, the ALMS cars and drivers never raced here at Watkins Glen. So this is a new experience for a lot of the cars and drivers in this field.
And it's critical in terms of the setup on the race car, but also how does the track change through the 6-hour event? A lot of these teams that have run here before have a great notebook to work from.
This racetrack, when it gets hot in the middle of the afternoon, turns greasy, and the car gets loose, and most of the guys know that. Some of the people who have never run here before, they're learning.
Thundering down the front straightaway past the pits, down into turn 1. Joao Barbosa in the number 5 from Action Express out front. Over Michael Valiente, Ricky Taylor, Alex Brundle, and Scott Pruitt.
Look at the GT scrum going on back here.
Yeah, look at that. Andy Prio in that black 55 BMW. He's having to defend. This car has a lot of speed around the racetrack, but it does not have the straightaway speed. He's already been leapfrogged from his pole position. Now he's under pressure from the number 4 Corvette.
You see the severity of the hill. You climb a lot of hills around here at Watkins Glen, and the bigger engine cars, the two you're looking at, the V10 Viper, this V8 over here on the Chevrolet, they climb those hills good.
American muscle down the straightaway. Corvette versus Viper.
V10 versus V8. And there's the Mazda Skyactiv diesel prototype going by another of the Corvettes. Jan Magnussen in the 3 car.
They're on a roll. They've won the last 2 rounds of the TUDOR Championship. They also finished runner-up at Le Mans. They have momentum.
Great battle here. Corvette, Viper, BMW.
We talk about how fast this racetrack is. Well, this gives you a good idea of it. The slowest corner on the track is 70 miles per hour. So, I mean, that is really going fast still.
On board there briefly with the number 911. That's Nick Tandy, who did get a penalty at the end of that Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca race when he was beating up on Bill Auberlen. Dropped him from 3rd to 9th that day. That was a big points hit to take. He would have been runner-up in this championship.
In this corner you're looking at, the left-hander, that is the slowest corner I was talking about on the racetrack. From there, they're all in the 90s or better.
See that black, the matte black, number 88, prototype challenge car in the hands of David Chang, kind of holding up the parade there. He's got some GTLM cars behind that want by.
It's tough because there's an ebb and flow to this race between the cars within their category, but also the different classes are all in a mix, as you can see. And Prio and those GTLM cars are quicker than that black PC car through some parts of this racetrack, but he can't clear him.
And Magnussen he's got really good opportunity right here because he's got a couple of the PC cars between him and the second place.
Surprise here, the number 60 from Michael Shank Racing with that Ford EcoBoost twin-turbo V6 is in the pit lane.
Yeah, they had a problem before the start, Dorsey. A fuel regulator went bad. They had to change it, didn't make the formation lap, had to start from pit lane. So big problems early on for one of the EcoBoost Ford cars.
Yeah, I suspect that's probably related still to that fuel rail more than likely. For them to pit now, they have trouble. Saying Le Mans is split right now by a couple of PC cars.
I wonder if that was a penalty because that was an awful quick pit stop. I think if you start from pit lane, you have to do a pit stop. If you start from pit lane, I believe the rules state you have to do a roll through pit lane.
Well, the 18 car did the very same deal, so he'll be doing the same penalty.
Right now, Joao Barbosa trying to make it 3 straight overall victories at the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen for Action Express, has gapped Michael Valiente in a similar Corvette prototype, the Visit Florida car.
And it's funny, Bob, we were talking to the Action Express drivers the other day, Fittipaldi and Barbosa, and I said, Joao, you seem to struggle on cold tires. He typically comes in the middle of the race and puts sticker tires on.
Rears are 1 low.
Fittipaldi defended him, and he said, well, Joao's starting on stickers. When I start on scrubs, I have a lot of speed. Joao is showing that speed here at the beginning of this race.
That was a good information bit from the pits. It was the fronts are good, the rears are 1 low. They're talking about 1 pound of pressure. They're looking at the pressure on the rear. The rears are not up to pressure yet. It's just driver info is all that is.
Well, they may have had to change the setup because when Jordan gets in, he doesn't have the mullet anymore, so he doesn't need...
He's not as aerodynamic, or more aerodynamic, I guess.
He's probably weaker, too, I think.
Things just settling in now. I expect this car, the pole-sitting car of Alex Brundle, to really come into its sweet spot right now. First time he saw the racetrack was this week, and boy, oh boy, what a performance in qualifying. Speaking to his teammate Gustavo Yackerman, he said, Alex is one of the fastest drivers I've ever co-drived with on cold tires.
There's your leader in the PC category, that beautiful Martini and Rossi livery on the Star Works entry. Currently leading PC in the hands of Renger van der Zande. The Lone Renger, we tend to call him. Right now, he's 9th in the overall.
Yeah, and they're doing a great job this year, running with the Star Works team with that beautiful Martini livery. Had a win at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, followed that up with the runner-up finish at Kansas. They are on a roll, and he is a really quick. Where did he come from? Well, he's competed in DTM, which is one of the biggest touring car championships in the world over in Germany. Has a lot of experiences running Formula 3, a single-seater category over in Europe as well. The boy has speed. We just don't know him very well.
Chevrolet V8s in all of those cars. Now let's pick up the GTD leader. There it is, the 94 from Turner Motorsports in the hands of Dane Cameron. The slight lead over the pole-sittering class, the Porsche 911 of Lee Keen.
They had trouble the other day in the qualifying session, and they've been having trouble. Calvin, you and I were talking about the fact that they've had a couple of the wheel nuts not matching up into the hub, and the wheel came off the right rear while Dan was trying to qualify the other day.
Yeah, it's been a problem. They actually switched to a different thread, an opposite threaded side to the car in terms of the hub setup. I spoke to the team last night. They said, we thought it was just Detroit that was giving us that problem, so we switched back. We've obviously identified that is not. They've switched back again for race day. Hopefully it will not be a problem.
It's hard to overstate how excited the drivers and teams are to be here at this world-renowned track, Watkins Glen International. We'll take a break and be back with more in the first of the 6 hours of the Sahlen 6 Hours at the Glen. There's so much history here in the Watkins Glen area, and specifically here at Watkins Glen International, host of virtually every form of major motorsports from around the world, including, of course, the longtime home of the U.S. Formula One Grand Prix through 1980. Now here, as the new era of North American sports car racing dawns with the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship, a whole new home for American sports cars. And you can enjoy a very special experience here at the race. Open your computer, go to IMSA.com Race Central for live in-car cameras, live timing and scoring, and live pit notes via the Twitter feed at IMSALive.com. So you can watch our race coverage, pick up onboards at IMSA.com Race Central. Enjoy. Looking out the back of the number 93 Dodge Viper SRT in those beautiful red and white colors that they carried back in 1999 and 2000, where they won the Rolex 24 at Daytona, won their class at Le Mans, won ALMS championships, and here they are.
Also won here in FIA GT back in 1999, so they've got good history here, and I think the cars look beautiful, Dorsey, in those red and white colors. Really cool scheme.
It really pop like that. You see the two of them on track, and the silver looks really good when you're right up next to it, but when you put it out on the racetrack, it looks kind of like drab gray. This is much better.
Sandwiching one of the GTD class, or GT, is that the Risi car, or is that Ferrari in the middle?
Yeah, that's Kaffer.
Yeah, that's Kaffer in the...
He's one of the guys who have been busy boy. He competed at the Le Mans 24-hour race, the Ring 24-hour over in Germany, the Nürburgring track, and also here today. So he's one of the guys who are going to have to try and dig deep here today. Of course, Risi coming off a podium finish at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca when they got promoted a spot with Tandy's penalty. But good to see the Risi boys back on the podium.
That it is. On board the 91 Viper. As you see, Dodge celebrating 100 years in the automobile industry, and a lot of it with some pretty spectacular racing.
Talking about some of these drivers who competed, it's going to be 54 hours of racing in 15 days potentially here if they see the 6-hour mark today. And here are the 5 guys who have competed in all 3 events. And you combine the international travel, the logistics. We saw Jerome Bleekemolen tweet this week on his final flight here. His flight was canceled. He slept on the airport floor. It doesn't get easy. It may seem like a very nice lifestyle to be driving race cars, but the travel can get to you.
Jerome is here with his father this weekend, Michael, who raced in the U.S. Formula One round back in the day, and it's his first visit to Watkins Glen since he drove an ATS in the U.S. Grand Prix.
That must be something. That's a memory for you.
Oh, boy.
About 1971 till now.
The 08 car of Alex Tagliani. He was the guy who had that horrible incident here yesterday, just tried to spin the wheels to turn the car around, got it wrong, straight into the path of Chris Miller, but a lot of work had to be completed on that race car to get it to see the green here today.
GTLM battle there between one of the Porsches and one of the factory BMWs.
So Kaffer there very wide. There were track limits in place yesterday for qualifying where if you exceeded the track limits, particularly in turn 1, turn 9 and turn 10 where you can run all 4 wheels off, you lost your lap time. Here today, unless you gain an advantage, there will not be a penalty, and you can really just use it as a cushion. If you feel the car's going to spin, if you're going to try and pinch it off, you're just going to try and roll out and use that extra piece of blacktop.
You see him flashing his lights at the 88 PC car right there in front of him. He's trying to tell him what he wants him to do is move over and let me race with the guys in my class. Well, that is not a command. You don't have to move over. But he's also telling him that if you don't move over, I might move you over.
Drivers use the curbs everywhere around this racetrack. There you see them doing it as they head down into the boot.
There's only like one corner as you enter the inner loop where you can't use the curb. Most of them you can. The 70 is in.
Yeah, they've been having problems all weekend. I think as we were going to break, we heard the pits telling him that he was on 5, which I took to mean 5 cylinders, and that Sky acted. Well, it's a 4-cylinder car. So
yeah, no,
you're right.
He's on map 5.
Map 5.
They've been having trouble with this car with overheating the oil. And although it's identical to the sister car is having no problem.
We're seeing this battle really intensify, and it's not between in the class, it's between different classes. This 88 car is getting really defensive. This is going to really frustrate the driver of that Porsche right now because he wants by. Patrick Long has so much experience, but he is not going to like the fact that a different class car is driving a defensive line, hugging the inside and stopping him from having a passing opportunity.
Well, it's awkward to race against those cars because that car has a little bit better braking potential. He's holding these GT cars up in the corner unbelievably.
You can see what it did to Patrick Long there. He couldn't get off the corner correctly. Now Dirk Mueller in that Crown Plaza BMW is all over him.
And Patrick, that nudge he gave him was a warning.
Look at this battle.
Kuno Whitmer has got Pierre Caffer in the Ferrari all over him, and then Mark Goossens in the next Viper.
Oh, and here's a move to the inside by Caffer, but he gave up on it. There was nowhere to take the car to.
Here comes the chicane.
This is one of those problem spots, Dawson, that you highlighted on the track map.
Yeah, it's going to be like this all day.
Got to be patient.
You know, when you're in a big pack of cars like this and you initiate a pass on another car, you got to look past that car to see if you can possibly pass it. Is there a place for me to go? Sometimes there isn't. You have to give up.
And the slower cars can't just disappear. I mean, you've got to hold the line somewhat, and if you get out in the gray, you're going to crash. There's not the grip out there. There's marbles, the little pieces of rubber that come off the tires during the course of the race, wash out to the outside of the racetrack, and that gives you zero grip. So for these other competitors who aren't as fast, whether it's a different class car or different experience behind the wheel,
oh, look at this.
Got to be careful.
They're beating up on. They're going both sides of this 88 PC car.
Well, Long and Mueller have cleared him, but now it's a battle for the Vipers and the Ferrari to get by as well.
Now we're informed that there's a bit of a transponder issue on the lead car. It is not Joao Barbosa, but Christian Fittipaldi, who started the number 5 and currently runs on the race lead. We'll check into that. Meanwhile, this is a great battle involving GTLM and PC machinery.
It's getting to be an angry battle, though. I mean, there's tempers are starting to flare as the PC car is holding up the GT squad.
This is where your team manager really has to come into play. He's got to remind you, guys, it's a 6-hour race. Do not take any chances. Damaged bodywork can absolutely ruin your day. You've just got to be patient.
Absolutely well spoken, Cal. I mean, long way to go in this race, and any kind of damage to the car that makes you come in and have something fixed is just killing you. Cannot do it.
But this is what sports car racing is all about. The mechanical diversity of the prototypes, the purpose-built race cars versus the production-based GT cars. That PC car has strength over the GTLM cars that makes him difficult to pass at certain parts of the racetrack. Now the 70's been in and out again. Darren?
Yeah, the Speed Source Mazda, they had an oil leak in the engine bay. They believe they can fix it, so they're making the repair, putting oil back in it, and sending it back on track. You know, this is still a development program, so they're working through a lot of different things here.
They came here with a lot of changes to their radiator system, which made it ironic that the 70 car had some overheating issues early in the weekend.
Well, the big thing is cooling. How they get performance out of that diesel engine, it really generates a lot of heat, so they're really working on their cooling package. Made some revisions for this race. Spoke to Sylvain Tremblay, who's one of the drivers, of course, and the team owner of Speed Source. He basically said, we've got a major upgrade coming for the next event, and basically the electronics, Dorsey, once it sees a certain temperature, it cuts fuel back, stops the power, and he said it can be a 30-40 horsepower loss. There's nothing you can do about it behind the wheel. You're just going to deal with what the electronics will give you.
And one of the things that they're worried about with that oil leak is the fact that you said how hot the car runs inside internally. Well, that turbocharger under the hood, if it gets oil on it, it'll flash fire off of that. So they're really wanting to stop that problem. Is this overall lead now is getting good.
Michael Valiente in the Visit Florida car. Behind him, GTLM machine, Ferrari for Krone Racing.
These guys coming off a great podium run, finished second, just inches behind the winner, Ricky Taylor, in Detroit. So they've got a little bit of momentum. Very happy with the car. Rolled off quick. Michael qualified the car third in class here yesterday, but just narrowly missed out on the second spot. They're looking strong. He and Westy looking for their first win of the year.
Alex Brundle in the pole-sitting Oak Racing Nissan makes his way by the Krone car, up through the S's and onto the backstretch at Watkins Glen. We'll take a break and return. Welcome back to the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen, round 6 of the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship, the all-important third round of the Tequila Patrón North American Endurance Cup. Bob Varsha, Calvin Fish, and Dorsey Schrader with you. Darren Law and Brian Till are in the pit lane. Here's a breakdown of the 4 classes running together in today's 6 hours. The prototypes, purpose-built exotic sports cars, lots of mechanical diversity from team to team. In Prototype Challenge, everybody has the same package of chassis, engine, and tires. And the GT production-based cars, the GT Le Mans machinery, a little bit more powerful, driven by professional drivers. And the GT Daytona class, which includes some of the Pro-Am drivers who don't necessarily make their living as racing drivers, but they are quick machines. And again, perhaps the most diverse in terms of brand participation.
Maybe the most competitive class. I mean, we're going to see some great GTD battles this year, and both the PC class and the GTD, as you mentioned, Bob, does have to have Pro-Am drivers involved in their driving roster. There's minimum drive times. And we'll get more into that as this 6-hour race unfolds. Dane Cameron here, spreading the lead. And this car, this is also a BMW Z4, and it has a similar kind of feel to the GTLM cars from the Rahal group in GTLM. It's not that quick down the straightaway, but really gets through the corners. So once you can develop a gap and run your lap time, you should, if you've got the fastest car, be able to stretch that lead. But if you're racing with the other guys, they can just pass you on the straightaways. It's really hard to get away. We saw at Detroit, they had a really fast race car, but just couldn't make the progress through the field because they didn't have the straightaway speed. But that's okay. It's just certain cars have strengths in different areas of the racetrack.
There's first and second in class, Cameron in the bright yellow and blue Turner Motorsports BMW, and then Lee Keane in the WeatherTech white Porsche 911. And there's the third place car in class, Spencer Pumpelly in the Audi R8 LM. We talked about all of the different endurance races that have taken place over the last few weeks. Le Mans won by Audi with their e-tron Quattro prototype car. The Nürburgring race was a GT race, and they won with one of these R8 LMs. And now here they are going for the sweep.
And they'll run like this all 6 hours. They won't ever be much more separated than they are right now. I mean, that is how competitive that class is. They just run almost identical, same lap time, speeds, everything.
And Spencer Pumpelly, we're seeing him behind the wheel of the 35 machine. He's going to be driving 2 different cars here today, the 35 and the 45 machine for Flying Lizard. You can drive 2 cars, but you have to nominate before the race starts which car you're going to get points in. You just can't choose depending on which car's doing better. Spencer's actually going to get points in the opposite car, the 45 machine, so he's hoping that car runs well and his teammates keep it out of trouble.
I remember when I did that. I used to drive in 2 or 3 different cars in a race, and I was running this race, and I was about to pass myself, and I'm thinking, should I do that, you know?
I'm sure prize money was involved.
Well, then I started talking prize money with the car owner, so wait a minute.
Well, there are a lot of teams with more than 2 drivers entered on the cars, and that's mainly because they want to be careful about this long, hot 6-hour race. They want to have somebody on standby in case someone has a problem.
Oh, we had a race yesterday. Andy Lally drove, and he had a little problem in his car, and he actually burned his right foot to the point, 2nd-degree burn. Huge blister. He's running in the race today with that blistered foot, and so I mean, it's not fun. It's really hot in these cars, and if you have a little problem, it could be a big one. Here's a spin. Talking about problems.
Michael Avenatti back behind the wheel. I don't think he's been in that car since Sebring.
That's the bus stop. He's in the inner loop there.
He's one of the Pro-Am drivers, and I think the strategy for a lot of these guys is a minimum drive time that they have to do. They want to get these guys in early just so that they reach that threshold, which then gives them a more open strategy for the rest of the event.
When they built that inner loop in the early 90s, it was designed to slow things down, but technology through tires and chassis and so forth have come to now that inner loop is over 90 miles per hour at the slowest point. So it's not really a slow corner anymore.
There once again is your GTD class leader. Let's hear from the boss man at Turner Motorsports with Darren.
Hey, well, you guys are running really good out front. The car looks fast. How does it feel? Any issues?
No, you know, we're out front now, but, you know, we want to be out front in 5.5 more hours. But Dane's in his pace. The car is good, but we're kind of wondering why the Porsches and the Audi haven't closed the gap. We have a feeling that they're just pacing us. There seems to be a top speed difference between the Porsche and some other cars this weekend. So, again, we're happy to be out front. Hope it can last. Dane's settling in and seems to be pretty happy.
All right, guys, we saw yesterday in the race yesterday the mileage was an issue. You wonder if they're pacing themselves to keep things better towards the end and change the strategy.
Yeah, well, certainly if you're running really hard, you're going to burn a little more fuel, and if you can split the race up and save a pit stop by running a bit more conservatively on your fuel mileage, that may be a strategy early on. But I think what Will is relating to, the Porsches, as he said, seem really quick. They did have a BOP, balance of performance change. It's where they're really altering the technical specs of the cars a little bit, Dorsey, to try and equalize the playing field. They felt Porsche needed a bit of help, a little less weight this weekend, and a little bit more fuel on board as well.
During that lap, an interesting thing, the 911 Porsche with Nick Tandy. Of course, Nick, we saw earlier, he was the one that got into with Bill Auberlen and got a penalty as a result. Has been given a furled black flag for being a bit over-aggressive once again behind the wheel. So this is a pretty big implication because it's your only one warning you're going to get. If they find him doing something again, he'll get a much more stringent penalty.
On board with Tandy right now in the 911.
So they're going to have to talk him down. Same thing you were talking about, Calvin. Your corner man, your crew chief, you got to have a guy on the radio to keep your temper down. Get yourself in a nice mellow mode.
And remember, the two cars involved in that little contretemps at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca are the two you're looking at right now. We're on board with Tandy. It's not Bill Auberlen behind the wheel in the BMW. Now it's the Englishman, Andy Prio. And boy, Andy Prio has really done a tremendous job this year. He doesn't know the majority of these circuits. Typically was drafted in by BMW and he's running DTM to do the longer distance races, so he knows Daytona, Sebring and stuff like that. But now he's having to learn these racetracks. They had a 2-day test. That really helped him out. And to put it on the pole on your first visit here, that is saying something about his talent.
We didn't see the skirmish, so we don't know that for sure it was these two cars, but the way Tandy's driving and he's swerving back and forth, I'm almost sure it's probably these two cars. So he wants by, and he's trying to make a nuisance of himself.
The GTD Ferraris in the pits.
Jack Gerber behind the wheel.
Contact, perhaps?
Didn't see that they did anything.
Might have been involved with the 81 spin that we saw a little bit earlier, so let's take a look here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, into the chicane.
Well, that was not the 51's fault, I wouldn't say. I think the 81's chopped across his nose.
One of those problems areas, Dorsey, that you mentioned is just a stack-up effect there. We typically expect it between the different classes. These cars are not that different in speed down the straightaways, but it's the braking and cornering entry speeds where there's a massive difference, and the bus stop chicane entry right here is where there's a big difference.
That used to be about a 70-mile-per-hour corner, but with technology now, it's a 99-mile-per-hour entry to that corner. So, that's just the way cars have gotten, the cars have progressed.
Christian Fittipaldi, our overall leader there, you can see him weaving his way through traffic. Really has done a tremendous job this year. Some tremendous opening stints. He's really got the rhythm of the racetrack going. He's flowing through traffic nicely and has a nice healthy margin of 3.5 seconds over Michael Valiente, who runs in the Visit Florida number 90 in second.
Action Express, one of the teams that entered a third driver coming over from the sister car, the 9, Bert Frizzell. But in talking with the team, they expect that Christian Fittipaldi and Joao Barbosa contact there. That
was a rough ride, too.
Yeah,
car, I think.
Getting it back of the 63.
He came across that curbing, and that's not a curbing you would normally hit.
He may have been distracted there, seeing the faster car come up behind him, just lost his focus a little bit. Jeff Westphal behind the wheel. This is the championship-winning Ferrari from last year in the GT class in the Rolex series. Obviously, the merger between last year and this.
Now, one of the things that they've been looking at is these guys, when they hit curbs hard like that, is they've been getting tire damage at the bead where the tire itself mounts to the rim. They've been getting a blister there due to the puncture, not a puncture, but due to the fact that you clouded a curb. We'll take a look at that again and just see how severe the Ferrari gets the ride here.
It's a little wide. He's got two wheels on, so he's technically in the right, but
yeah, he's fine in terms of track limits, but you could just see there's a cutaway there with the curbing. It kind of cuts back on itself, and he just ran off there. Probably hadn't run in that area of the track before. Expected it to be a smooth ride, and it was more than that.
Yeah, it was.
That could have been a lot worse than it turned out. Hey, to fish my point about Action Express, we expect Barbosa and Fittipaldi will go the distance as a duo. Bert Frizzell will drive the 9. Now let's get down into the pit lane. Check on one of the top GTLM machines, the Corvette Racing. Bright yellow entry with Brian Till.
Dan Binks told me before the start of the race he was very confident. Antonio Garcia, you and Jan Magnussen looking for another win. You've got experience at this racetrack, but not in this Corvette. How different is it than the prototypes that you've driven here before?
I mean, it's different in the way of traffic lies out, because I've been used to be the fastest cars or the fastest category out there, so now I'm in the middle, or we are in the middle, so there is a few cars going by, but they are not as way faster than us anyway, but I mean, we just need to deal with traffic. It's going to be a key thing on this race for sure. And so far, Corvette is running really, really good, very strong, so 5 hours to go, and we just hope to keep this position 1-2 for Corvette.
I know it was another podium finish for you guys at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. You wanted one more step on that podium, but how much confidence does it give you coming off of a good Le Mans, coming into a 6-hour race like this?
I mean, we definitely have come from a really good momentum. I mean, we won the previous 2 races here, and without that little issue we had at Le Mans, I think we had the car to win for sure. So we are really enjoying to drive this 7R, and I mean, we just need to keep focusing, and I mean, I'm sure if we keep doing what we do, I mean, more races will come and we will win more.
And I know the fans love seeing the Corvette here this year, guys.
Well, we talk about a lot of the drivers, Bob, who haven't had a lot of rest. Well, Antonio's a new daddy. It was a busy week of Le Mans when his wife gave birth to their little daughter, so I wonder how much sleep he's been getting away from the racetrack. Maybe this is a break when he does come racing.
That's right. Sorry, honey, I've got to go to the United States from their home in Barcelona, Spain. Now, we're going to go on board with Nick Tandy in the 911 Porsche. Watch the BMW up ahead as they enter this corner.
Boom. And we believe that this contact came after he was given the warning, so he's either not listening or just getting caught out a little bit there. I don't think there was anything that Prio did. He didn't use all of the road, but you're obviously going to set up for that final turn 11, Dorsey.
Yeah, you don't want to run afoul of the judges after they give you that furrow black flag. You usually, if you do a bad thing, you come and talk about it.
He's got around him now, so Nick Tandy is now in the 3rd spot. He's gotten around Andy Prio somewhere on that last lap.
See the red number on the side indicating place in class for that or any of the cars in the field. We've got another break going, and we'll be back to the Sahlen 6 hours at Watkins Glen. Still in our first of 6 hours here on Fox Sports 1. So stay with us, everyone. We'll be back.
When the sun shines, the shadows are long across the roadway. Blackboard signs in the pit area keep drivers informed of their progress. George Weaver still ahead gives an all's well signal to the official staff. And the little Effie still in there. Here they come up Old Corning Hill, and uphill struggle for the lead. Dave Weil is ahead in his number 19 MG. Black flag signals the driver to stop for a safety check on his car. Cars get bunched up coming downhill to the Old Stone Bridge. Every driver is trying to improve his position on this last lap, and 2 of them do. Time seems to be running short for Weil. And for every other car, pressing to the utmost on every curve. And here's the checkered flag and victory for Bill Walters.
That was awesome stuff. I think you turned in a little bit early there for one of those corners.
How about those 4 off going over the railroad crossing?
That was pretty cool. I tried to do that a few years ago, but it's...
You know, one of the great things about Watkins Glen is you can come here and drive that original street course, including right down the main drag at the village of Watkins Glen. They only raced there for about 5 years before it became clear that the cars were too fast to be safe. In fact, there was a tragic accident that eventually led to the creation of what is now Watkins Glen International.
And Darren Law and I were on that track last night, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, 4 off at the railroad crossing, I'm sure.
We didn't. Oh, boy.
Getting pretty close to the first round of pit stops here. These prototype machines will run about 40 to 45 minutes on fuel, but look at this. Alex Brundle really starting to put the heat on. Michael Valiente for second. PC leader is in. Brian.
First prototype challenge, domino to fall. Ringer Van de Zande climbs out. Mirko Schultes climbing in the number 8. This car absolutely beautiful with that Martini livery on the side of it, and they have run so incredibly well. Schultes will take it out. Expect to see Van de Zande in for sure in that final stint, but we still have a long way to go for a checkered flag here at Watkins Glen.
Looked like they were struggling a little bit with the belts, and
yeah,
still
they still are, yeah.
Okay, clear to go, clear.
Stefan Pfeiffer there, the car chief for Starworks, one of the most experienced guys in pit lane, has such a great personality. Love to have a guy like that on my headset during a race because he just calms you down, keeps it light. Really neat guy.
While we were in break, Boris Said brought the number 31 Corvette prototype into the pits with a flat right front tire. They got it changed. He's back on his way, currently running 29th in the overall and 12th in class.
On board there with Alex Brundle, Dorsey, and we're looking at the straightaway speed difference between, within the prototype class, two different configurations of race car. You got the Daytona prototypes there, the Visit Florida number 90, and then the P2 machine from ALMS competition. Look at that, look at the speed difference there. That's the downforce coming into play, and 300 pounds less weight.
That's what I was thinking too, that, you know, the car in front would have been better from turn 1 to the top of the hill, but from this part of the racetrack, watch Brundle go to work. He's got good downforce. He's going to try to make a move.
He's lighter too. That really helps you into the brake zones as well. You're not slowing down as much weight.
Qualifying among these prototypes, well, among all 4 classes, was spectacular yesterday with one car after another going to the top of the charts. Alex Brundle just put in an amazing lap.
Good stint here,
to
Bob.
take the pole.
42 minutes on the board. And also they had to do the parade lap too, so they're getting pretty good mileage as Falcon Tire make their first pit stop. Brian Sellers did a nice opening stint there.
You should be seeing everybody pretty soon now. The dominoes start to fall.
Only example of the GTLM Porsche 911 RSR being run by a private team. The others are in the hands of the Core Autosport, the factory-supported.
Here they come.
Porsche effort
Everyone in
GTLM.
together.
Here come the prototypes. Christian Fittipaldi, Michael Valiente, Alex Brundle, all in a row. Let's go to Brian.
5 cars in, it'll be a routine stop, and they will leave Christian Fittipaldi in. Cars are very brutal, like we talked about at the beginning. A lot of downforce on these machines. That puts a lot of load on the driver's neck and on his body in the car in these high-speed corners, but they're going to stick it out. They've got a third driver on the list, and Bert Frizzell, they don't want to use him. They say it's easier to do it with 2. Question is, physically, can you do it with 2, Darren?
Hey guys, you're going to see several different strategies here. I'm watching the 90 car, the VisitFlorida.com car, put on brand new Continentals. They're leaving Valiente in the car. The Reese car also has Catford. Although the Falcon car switched drivers, so they're already looking at double stinting guys, single stinting guys. There's a mixture of driver strategy right now.
I would think if you're going to double stint a driver, you'd want to do it right now in the front because it's going to get hotter as the day goes on. The guys are going to be more tired as they keep cycling through these driving stints. So, you know, right now would be a good time to do a double stint with a guy, I would think.
And a driver change should theoretically, if it goes well, be done within the amount of time you're stationary on pit lane to get the fuel in the car, get the tires done. So it's really not going to cost you any time. Where it gets tricky if you're going to do a driver change, you're not completely empty on fuel. You're not putting as much fuel in. Then it really puts a lot of pressure on them. When you got a bit more pressure, it can go wrong. You hang up a belt, suddenly you can lose 5 seconds or more very, very quickly. So that's why you're reluctant to do as many driver changes, Dorsey, in case it goes wrong.
You see these guys feeling their tires out right now as they're coming up to pressure. You saw sticker tires going on, so they're not full grip yet.
As I mentioned, Gustavo Jacquemin said that Alex Brundle is one of the best in the business on cold tires, but as we saw at the start, these DPs seem to generate a little bit more tire temp quicker into the stint. Oh, Brundle looks to the inside.
Oh, Brundle is on the attack, no question.
And I think it's because of the weight of the vehicle, Cal, because the older Daytona prototype cars are quite a bit heavier.
The 10 is in. Brian.
They will follow the same strategy as the 5, leaving Taylor in the car right now. It'll be a double stint for him. 4 Continental tires and fuel going in. Not a mark on this car right now, although I've seen some of the other classes with body parts hanging off, kind of showing the scars of battle on the racetrack. But so far, the 10 is clean. Should be a routine stop with fuel and Conti tires.
Meanwhile, we had contact on track there between Michael Valiente in the 90 and Alex Brundle in the 42 prototypes.
Yeah, down into the heel of the boot. Alex was looking really racy, really aggressive. He got into the back of Valiente, and that's not the first time this year that these two cars have had a little bit of contact, Bob. We saw it at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca between Richard Westbrook and Alex Brundle later in the race. Early in the going, it was Jacquemin and Valiente, so they've traded paint on occasion this season.
We saw a bunch of carbon fiber fly off. It's probably just the winglets on the of the front of the car. And the Delta Wing is winning the race at this point.
That's right. Young Gabby Chavez in the Delta Wing. DWC is now leading the race.
Timmy Keene, who's crew chief on this car now, told me, we're going to win this race. You just watch. He said, I've done a lot of stuff to the car, and he says, I'm going to win this.
They're running fast lap times, less than a second off the overall pace of the day.
New PC class leader, James Gooey in the 54, makes the pit stop.
This is a team that are on a roll. They've won 3 of the first 4 events of the season. They lead the Patrón Endurance Cup standings based on 2 wins at Daytona and Sebring. They're the only team that can get the Grand Slam as we see more pit stop action. Patrón car is in.
Meanwhile, the sister car, the number 1 in the hands of Scott Sharp, apparently has a speeding in the pit lane penalty coming. It's a 60-kilometer-per-hour pit lane speed limit that works out to 37.2823 miles per hour if you're scoring at home.
Right down to it.
And there's electronics that they can hit a button and keep the car that speed, but you still got to hit the brakes and slow it down, Dorsey.
Yeah,
if you don't get it slowed down before you get down below that speed.
Oh, left rear problem for the number 45 GTD Audi.
He has a half a lap to go, too, because he just left the bus stop. Still turn 5 right here.
Now, there's something you can do here.
Go straight across.
There's a cut through. That's what they just got told him. Thomas Blam on the radio said, cut straight across, cut through to the short course. You're going to lose scoring on that lap, but it's not going to do as much damage to the car. Brian.
Jan Magnuson out, Antonio Garcia in the number 3 Corvette. Very quick stop there, down and away. Amazed at the amount of rubber already all across the front of that Corvette. Man, I'm telling you right now, this racetrack is pulling rubber off these tires, and they're going to have to think about conserving as the temperature comes up throughout the day.
You're right, Brian. We've been seeing it on the monitors here that there's a lot of rubber on the straightaways bouncing all over the place.
Stay on your right. Stay on your driver's right.
Right now, he has done no damage. Now he's done
a little bit. You got to slow it down. He's going too quick.
Yeah.
He's going too quick.
That carcass will come apart and tear the entire back of the car off.
It's painful to run that slow. Here's a replay coming down into the heel of the boot. Both cars on fresh tires, and Brundle just too aggressive there.
Yep. Locks up and gets into the back. You saw it clearly.
Yeah, Michael didn't block or anything. He's essentially on the correct line. I think just Alex overcommitted a little bit. Couldn't get it slowed down. Didn't anticipate maybe Michael braking as much, and he didn't have the grip in his tires to slow it down and avoid him.
He's lost all his dive planes on the nose, and so probably has a little bit more understeer now than he had. He's still under attack, though.
His dive planes are the little spoilers at the corner of the car that add a little bit more road-hugging aerodynamic downforce to the car.
And that's what you saw flying off. He didn't get all of them, though, Cal. He just got that right bottom one, it looks like.
Yeah, that'll hurt him a little bit, maybe lose 50 pounds of downforce. When we talk about that number, it's the equivalency of actually putting that weight and pushing the car down on the racetrack. 45 car is in.
Darren Law. The left rear tire is completely blown out. Obviously, you can see it on TV here. It doesn't look like there's any damage to the car. I don't know that they got hit or if they just blew a tire. They're following standard routine. They're going to keep Spencer in for a double stint. Ryan?
A different strategy for the number 4 Corvette. No driver change here. Tommy Milner will double stint here in the beginning. That means he will run 2 times in a row, 2 tanks of fuel, and 2 times his Michelin tires. They're down and away.
Now we understand the other Tequila Patrón car, both the 1 and the 2, are going to have to do drive-through penalties for excessive speed on pit lane. Typically, the cars are engineered with a button that matches the revs and the throttle position to keep them under the speed limit. As you see, one of the cars making its drive-through, that's the number 1. So they must have a team-wide technology problem in terms of keeping these cars under the pit lane speed limit.
Well, these systems can go awry. We saw it with the BMW team at Sebring. They had 4 consecutive pit speed violations. The electronics weren't working. The driver's saying, we're doing everything we're supposed to. It was off, and so you can get caught out. There's been a change for the lead. The number 5 car's made a second pit stop, so something's a little missed there in terms of their strategy. Michael Valiente now leads this motor race in the Visit Florida number 90.
And Alex Brundle is still behind him.
By 0.2 of a second. There we are. That's the battle for the lead. Whoa, Alex wide there as he went around the traffic. Maybe got into some of those marbles we talked about. Edge of this racetrack is going to get slick.
It is. You get offline now. You see all that spent rubber out there. You get off, there's enough of it, and the car doesn't turn anymore. And he just had a wake-up call right there.
Whew. There you see more of it in the final corner.
The big problem becomes if it traps itself inside the car, it rolls around in the floor pan, gets really big. Like I'm talking about basketball size big sometimes.
Here we go, 50-odd minutes into this race. The BMW pole-sitting car makes its first pit stop. Prio out, Bill Auberlen behind the wheel.
Now let's get more on that 90-42 contact on track with Darren.
Troy, we saw the contact on TV, and we know, I mean, you've got 6 hours. Obviously, you don't want to have anything like this happen. I mean, that's a tough one for you guys. Is the car okay?
Yeah, it seems like the car's going to be all right. It's just getting old. This has been happening now for a few races, and nothing's being done about it. So hopefully they make the right decision here, and we keep racing. But the car looks good. I'm happy to visit Florida. Weather's nice, and we're going to try to keep going to get to the end.
All right, man, that's a tough one. You gotta make sure you don't run into trouble early on.
And there's spin there for the 007. That's David Block behind the wheel of the TRG Aston Martin Vantage.
That's a bad place to be. That's the uphill left-hander. You go across a bridge. Underneath that, where that car is a bridge. The car gets really light there, and if you come up there not knowing the car's spun out, you could be right into it.
Well, the trouble is, Dorsey, for him to move, he's going to actually
go forward,
close the track even further.
He's made contact.
Damage to the rear wing.
Yeah, the rear
made
wing
contact with the wall. You see the wing. This corner always scared me. He tried to pinch the corner off.
He just swapped ends on him. He just got on the power a little too aggressively. Lit the rear tires up, it looked like. And
he was trying to stay out of the way, and he was way offline.
Got behind with the steering.
And look at this Ferrari.
Boy, one of the Ferraris. A little bit unsighted. Around the corner comes. Looks like he's got the fire still. David Block will try to get that Aston straightened out. There are your leaders in class at the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen. We'll be back. Back on a beautiful day in the southern tier of New York, the Finger Lakes region. Great wine country, and for more than 6 decades, great motor racing at Watkins Glen International. Just past the top of the hour, noon Eastern time. All 6 hours of the Sahlen's 6 Hours of the Glen coming your way today here on Fox Sports 1. I'm Bob Varsha with Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader, Brian Till and Darren Law in the pit lane. And here's the battle we've been seeing up front in this race since shortly after the green flag. Michael Valiante in the Visit Florida Corvette Daytona prototype, and Alex Brundle, who started on pole with that Oak Racing Nissan. There has been contact. They are definitely slugging it out.
And Alex is still attacking. I mean, just ruthlessly. He'll be good up here. Once they get to the top of this hill, watch Alex go to work.
Well, you'd think the Daytona prototype, Michael Valiante, had a bit of an advantage going up the straightaway, but through that far stuff, Dorsey, that's where the P2 car comes to life. But the 5 car has dropped back a little bit, had to make that second pit stop. Brian, what was going on with that?
Guys, on the 5 car, you were talking about whether it was Joao Barbosa or Christian Fittipaldi at the start. Timing and scoring said Joao was in the car. Well, I just checked with the team. The reason that they came to pit lane, they had to serve a drive-through penalty. Something got messed up in the nomination of the starting driver. They thought they had nominated Christian. The series thought that they had nominated Joao, so the two didn't add up. The wrong driver in the car, and the team pays the price.
Yeah, all the timing and scoring, all of the paperwork said it was Barbosa.
That's a rare one.
Yes, it is.
There's penalties and rules and regs, but very rarely do you see that sort of happen. I mean, there's an official grid that we were working from. Our timing and scoring was showing that Barbosa was driving the car at the start.
That slow 51 Ferrari back there, guys. It looked like it was smoking. That could be a punctured tire. It might be something more sinister.
The teams are required by rule to nominate a driver to start the car within a certain time limit before the race. Apparently, nobody got the memo about Fittipaldi starting rather than Barbosa.
WeatherTech car having a great run here. Lee Keane put the car on the pole here yesterday. He leads right now. Alex Job Racing have had some success here at the Glen, have had 3 class victories over the years, 9 wins at Sebring, been successful at Le Mans. As Darren said at the beginning of the show, this is a very strong, potent combination. They've currently got cars 2nd and 3rd in the championship standings right now.
That was a great qualifying yesterday you're talking about, too. Lee Keane pulling that out at the very last lap of qualifying.
And we talk about 2 drivers versus 3 drivers. 2 weeks ago, we spoke with Lee Keane, who was on site to help Cooper McNeil, who was driving with Jeroen Bleekmolen. They were to have had a 3rd driver in that car, but it didn't work out. They had to go with 2. Which meant they had to run in the GTLM class.
Here's that 51 I was talking about, and it is a flat tire, left rear gone. And he's trying to make his way around 3.5 miles of racetrack.
Punches can, you say yellows breed yellows, Dorsey.
Yeah.
Punches can breed punches, because when these tires are flailing around, chipping away at that bodywork, those little pieces of carbon fiber can then puncture another car's tire.
In this racetrack, you can see there's a lot of debris to the outside of these corners. Some of that is what you're talking about, carbon fiber. A lot of it's that rubber that's getting really tore off of these cars today in the heat.
This is where the 007 was parked previously. Obviously, the car has moved on. Carefully, boys. See if we can see what happened to Jack Gerber in the 51. Watch the back coming off the corner, already backwards. Oh, and he takes another car off track. Didn't look like contact.
That looked like a self-inflicted wound is what that was.
And I think some of that is just, again, even if there's not contact in these critical braking zones, Dorsey, sometimes you're just distracted. You miss your turn-in point, you miss your line a little bit, and suddenly you're flying off the racetrack.
Meanwhile, the number 1 from Extreme Speed Motorsports.
It's got damage underneath the bottom of the car, like a floor pan. It looked like the mechanic was kicking away at something. Oh, he's got tire mark. Well, not that bad.
Originally designed as Acura chassis, they're now designated Hondas, engine and chassis. Brian is there.
Yeah, they've obviously had contact with another car. You saw the tire mark on the side, Dorsey. You're exactly right. They pulled off part of the under tray. Of course, the problem is these cars are very aerodynamically sensitive. In other words, they were designed for the air to flow around them in a very specific way, and now you've removed some of that on the left side. At the minimum, you're going to lose some downforce. Even worse than that, you could imbalance the car, because now your downforce levels are not the same side to side. So right now, the 1 has a long way to go, and it is not a healthy race car.
As we come to the end of hour 1 at the Sahlen 6 hours of the Glen, the only Viper in the GT Daytona class, the 33 car, is in.
And it looks like he's having a bad mechanical. You saw the mechanic went right back inside the car. Watch this, 90.
Heading into the bus stop. Well, he gets clipped there by that 88.
That 88
that 88 car is certainly
it's the blocker
been in the
today.
action.
Oh boy, Michael Valiente on the 90 has to be asking himself, what did I do to anybody?
And he's lost that left rear behind the fender, which is going to do the same kind of imbalance that Brian was talking about.
Yeah.
Look at all of that debris in turn 10. Rolled
He's
up
lost
rubber.
that fence there.
Oh man.
Behind the left rear wheel. And that'll affect the aero a little bit. He's going to have to just live with that. It's going to be a difficult part to replace in a pit stop.
And there's a chunk of it right there, kind of offline. Don't know if they'll go out and do anything with that or not.
And he was being patient, Bob. I mean, he was given that GTD Porsche plenty of room there on the entry, and just 3 and a 2 didn't work there on the entry to the bus stop.
I don't know that he realizes, I mean, he would have felt that, but I don't know if he knows that he's got a piece missing.
Troy Fliss will be looking at his bodywork bill at the end of this one. He's going to be even madder than he was an hour ago.
You're not kidding. That's not cheap.
Onto the backstretch after a blast through the S's. Now the 51 has got some damage from that flat tire. Darren?
Well, right now it looks like the damage was caused, or the flat tire was caused by something in the rear suspension. They're working underneath the bodywork here, using a lot of tie wraps and cutters and pieces. But, you know, one thing to keep in mind, it's a 6-hour race, and some of the curbs and some of the drop-offs off the edge of the curbs are very harsh, and that can damage the car. So these guys, even though they're running hard, they need to be careful on hitting those curbs.
We saw him spin on the entry to the bus stop, and he might have clouded that first curb, you know, because that's the biggest of the bunch, the one that you don't want to use. And he might have actually just spun right across the top of it.
Looking a great battle here for the 4th spot. Bert Frizzell, who's only running the Patrón Endurance Cup races this year, coming back here with his brother Brian and John Fogarty. 3 really good drives, but he said, man, it's tough to have a 3-month break and come back and be up to the speed of the other guys. He said in the practice sessions here this weekend, never really got a clear lap. He said, we'll get it in the race. He's done a really nice job here, holding down the 4th spot. But there's our guy we like to call the master, Scott Pruitt, really trying to get that Ford EcoBoost turbo engine towards the front. There was some scratching of the heads there in that camp, and Mike Shank saying we're about 6 to 7 miles an hour down on those Chevys down the straightaway with our turbo engines, and they're looking for a little help, I think, from the series. I mean, there's a bit of a political game that's played amongst the groups, but they said the facts don't lie.
You mentioned John Fogarty. Of course, we're familiar with him as Alex Gurney's teammate in the 99 Gainesco racing car from Bob Stallings, who had that savage accident with Memo Gidley at the controls at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The team is withdrawn, and Memo Gidley is continuing his rehabilitation from injuries suffered in that crash. Memo, I'm sure you're looking in, and we're thinking about you. We know it's rough. Hang in there.
Yeah, all the best, Memo. Want to see you back in the paddock, but there's some great action here.
Now, we saw damage to the #1 Patrón car, the green and black car at the back of this group.
3 wide again on the entrance. He's way down in early.
Oh, he gets into the 33.
Yeah, he was way too early apex there with too much speed and washed right into that Viper.
That explains why both cars visited the pit.
Remember, Johannes van Overbeek, his teammate, said it's a one line through there, but
Right.
Again, everyone gets antsy. They want to try and pass the slower traffic at that spot on the racetrack.
Here's the 44 Porsche, Brian.
John Potter stays behind the wheel. They ask him on that lap just before he pitted, are you good for one more stint, one more tank of fuel, one more set of Continental tires? He said, yes, I am, but they were having some problems with his helmet, the radio, I believe. Talking to him on the radio, they did have a crew member look in, make sure that all the fittings were connected properly. They've sent him back out on 4 new Continental tires and a load of fuel.
That's the car that Andy Lally is going to try to drive with that massive blister on his foot, picked up yesterday during the Continental Tire sports car race here. They also have Sebastian Ash on the driver lineup in case they need to get one of the regular season drivers out of the car, and everybody's going to be watching Andy Lally when he gets in.
And another thing we mentioned earlier in the race, Bob, we have these Pro-Am drivers. They have to do a minimum drive time. John Potter is one of the best Pro-Am drivers in the race, but he has to do a minimum 85 minutes to score points here today and make the car eligible for a result. So there's a strategy involved. They want to try and knock that out. It's not going to be the only action potentially he'll see, but try and get that number on the board early.
You know, radios have always been a problem here at this racetrack. The front straightaway and the back straightaway here, pit straightaway I'm talking about, are the highest point of the racetrack. But right where these cars are, you're dropping down a hill. You're going down toward the toe of the boot. Elevation totally different down here. And the radio drops out in these valleys. You don't have any reception down here in the bottom.
Let's get more on Andy Lally's situation. Brian is in the Magnus Racing pit.
Andy Lally is up on the box, and I noticed that you got both shoes on, so that's good. I don't see any bandages, but I did see bandages on your feet yesterday. How badly are they burned, and how's that going to affect you in the car today?
I put a picture of the main blister up on Twitter yesterday. It hurts, but I think once the adrenaline comes up, we'll be okay. Just before I go out, I'm going to pop a few Advil too, and we'll see. John's running really good now. His lap times are good. We're just a lap down right now, so we got to play the strategy. A lot of guys started their goals, and we're planning to do the opposite, so I don't know. We'll see how things play out here.
The most difficult thing going to be the driver change, the move to the car and running to it?
Yeah, I honestly think so. Like, I practiced a couple times circling around the car, and I popped it myself a few times last night. It came back and kept on coming. Once I'm in the car and my heels are up, and it's not on my feet. Fortunately, this Porsche gearbox is excellent, and it's self-flipping on the paddle shift, so I don't have to roll my foot, which is where the worst part of the blister is from yesterday. So I think we just had a header brake yesterday, and it was just blowing right into the foot box and just lit me up pretty good.
So I guess my final question has to be yesterday, what were you thinking? You did a double stint, you could have gotten out.
I would have been extremely disappointed with myself if I did that, but all the other training I do are for moments like that, and even though we missed the podium by one spot, I didn't want to let the team down and drop us back anymore. Every single point of championship is worth its weight in gold, and you got to go for things like that. I knew it was going to hurt a little bit today, but you got to do what you got to do. I think the boss, Johnny Stevenson, who's been great with me all year long, I think he would have been a little disappointed if I got out and it wasn't just blood gushing out of my foot.
You got to do what you got to do, and Andy Lally will be getting in that 44 a little bit later.
That's a guy who's an expert in jiu-jitsu. If you saw a guy out of the car because they had a blister, it wouldn't sound good. But just to clarify one thing, he mentioned a lot of guys started their goals. We talk about the Pro-Am drivers. They are designated bronze or silver drivers. The professionals are gold or platinum, and he's saying a lot of the other teams have started their pro guy at the beginning of this race.
There's a look at when you can see the Continental Tire 150 from Watkins Glen. It was a terrific race. No spoilers. Check it out on July 6th, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time from Watkins Glen. Another break coming up. We'll be back to Watkins Glen International and more of the Sahlen 6 Hours. You can watch the world's most exciting skateboarders live from Chicago as the 2014 Street League Skateboarding Nike SB World Tour gets underway tonight, 7 Eastern, only on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Welcome back to Watkins Glen International and the Sahlen 6 Hours, round 6 of the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. We're live from flag to flag with you here on Fox Sports 1. I'm Bob Varsha with Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader. Darren Law, Brian Till patrolling the pits. And there you see the story of the overall in this race for almost a full hour now. Michael Valiente in the number 90 Visit Florida Corvette prototype versus Alex Brundle in the Nissan-powered Oak Racing open cockpit P2 chassis that started on pole.
Yeah, Brundle's like a little terrier. He just will not let Valiente go. Valiente's car is looking more like a late model car at the back end of that thing. It's taking on a totally different appearance, but his speed is still there.
I wanted to say Alex is starting to settle down, but that's not true. He's still attacking.
He's a really impressive young driver, though. You know, just come a long way in a short period of time. Did some single-seater racing, but his dad really thought he was the perfect sports car driver, and he has proven to be right because Alex has put in some tremendous stints here over the last couple of years. They really had Le Mans looking like it was in their hands, and all went awry with some electrical issues in the late hours. Led with 5 hours to go, scrambled back to the lead again, then lost the lead at Le Mans with just 2 hours to go, which was heartbreak for the Oak Racing team.
Those are gracious remarks from a guy who used to lock wheels with Alex's old man, Martin Brundle. Back in the Formula days in Great Britain?
We had our few battles. I mean, it was the year of Ayrton Senna and Senna and Brundle. Martin certainly went out at head-to-head. We were up there occasionally, but not our best of seasons, but still good memories.
I heard they were both scared to death of Calvin Fish on the racetrack. Yeah, right. To Darren Law.
Guys, the number 62 Ferrari with Giancarlo Fisichella on board has an issue. They've already had to make one extra pit stop. They've got an alternator not charging. On that second stop, they changed batteries, and they're telling me if they can't get this issue fixed, they're going to have to keep changing batteries all race. Luckily, they've got telemetry to monitor the voltage and keep track of it, but it could be a long, long race for these guys.
Well, an alternator creates current, which charges the battery. These are very complex cars, and they are electronically controlled. You need about 13.5 volts of energy to run all the systems. Well, the battery's only 12 volts. The alternator provides more voltage, more power. When it fails, it's just a downhill spiral until the battery goes dead. Then the car won't run anymore. So they have a serious issue to deal with.
Yeah, and the key is then, if you're alternating batteries, A, how many spare batteries do you have, and can you get the one you take out charged up enough within the period that you're going to do in terms of your next pit stop. So it's a challenge, and it can spiral downwards.
Yeah, I mean, everything on these cars is electronic. You have electronic fuel pumps, electronic fuel injection, electronic steering, electronic everything. And the ECU, or electronic control unit, or the computer that runs the engine, will only operate above 13 volts.
And unfortunately, on a hot day like this, the first thing they typically tell you to do is to turn off any driving cooling fans and stuff like that. So it's like, boy, oh boy, just started this race, and now I've got no help.
I stopped by the Reese pits to chat with Giancarlo Fisichella about the Formula One days, and that is an immaculate car. Here's another one, the 07 Mazda Skyactiv diesel prototype. It has not been a good race thus far for either the 70 or the sister car, this one, the 07, currently in the hands of Tristan Vautier.
Pretty cool onboard shot here. You can see very clearly what the driver sees in his rearview mirror. So when cars come up from behind of this car, you'll see them too.
70 car has been retired, Dorsey. We're understanding from some kind of cooling issue. We saw it have an oiling issue there early in the race, and this car has also been behind the wall to reset the toe link. That's the suspension setting on the race car, so we may have had some contact there, but they're just trying to keep fighting on, gain experience, gain knowledge of this new machine for this year.
It's frustrating. That 70 car is identical to the 07. They have everything mapped out the same way, same radiator, same everything, but the 70 this weekend has been running high oil temperature, and they have not been able to find a reason for that, and they suspected they'd have trouble in the race. And
it is a high-tech car, two-stage turbocharger, and a whole raft of technical innovations. But at the same time, as sexy and swoopy as the prototype looks, there's a phenomenal amount of Mazda street car parts in it. That's the whole point of the exercise for Mazda, is to prove their street car technology in a racing environment.
It's great to see that they've drafted in Ben Devlin. Got so much experience with the Lola chassis. Ran P2 with Dyson a few years ago in the ALMS. He's been a bit quiet on the US scene recently, but he ran at Sebring. He's back this weekend. And Tristan Vautier, who's really been one of their standouts on the Mazda ladder system coming up through the single-seater ranks. A really quick young driver.
They allow fans into their paddock area to check out the car. They do a science and technology program in local schools. Hats off to Mazda for expanding their racing effort. It's a good look at a prototype challenge car. Frankie Montecalvo at the controls. He too raced at the 24 Hours of Le Mans 2 weeks ago.
Camp Boggy Creek, which is one of the official charities of the series, sharing their logos, which is great, just spreading the word on a tremendous facility down in the middle of Florida, just about an hour south of Daytona Speedway.
Right now they have the lead in the PC class, running up in 11th place in the overall. His co-driver is Gunnar Jeanette. Darren Law's with him.
Gunnar, you guys had you're having a good run right now, leading the race. Car looks good. He did a double stint, so you must be getting in next for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's just Frankie and I doing driving today in the Camp Boggy Creek Bayshore car. Frankie started, he's on a double, he's actually doubling the tires. We want to get all the doubling of the tires out with early, so at the end we're putting on fresh Continentals and going for the win.
All right, good. Doubling tires and doubling the drivers.
There is a limit to the number of tires available to the team, so tire strategy is equally important with your pit strategy.
Yeah, you're allocated X amount of tires is different for each class, but you've got to manage that carefully, and it starts when the race weekend starts. It's not just for the race, so you've got to really be careful how you manage that. And as Gunnar said, if we need the speed at the end and we need to keep throwing fresh Continental tires at it, we'll have those to spare.
PC teams get 10 sets of Continental tires for the race weekend, the prototypes 15 sets, and the GTD teams 12 sets. The 81 limping around. We've seen this car swap ends
left
in
rear
the race already.
Left rear down.
Yep.
What you see is you see the right front almost off the ground. These cars are pretty stiffly sprung. GTD would
Get
be
over now, get over now.
the lightest.
Clear, good.
And you need that help. With the big rear wings, you can't really see out the back of these cars through the mirrors, so you need a little bit of help from what we call spotters, people positioned around the racetrack, or maybe the team just looking at our monitors right now, seeing our feed, giving you a little bit of help.
Driver did a good job of getting this one back at a controlled speed where the tire carcass didn't tear the back of the car off.
It's almost like with a stiffly sprung race car, it's like a chair. If you cut one leg a little bit shorter, the opposite corner, the diagonal corner, is going to come up off the ground. You'd think the suspension droop would accommodate that, but the cars are pretty stiffly sprung.
Ben Barker driving the car, making his Watkins Glen debut. Thus far, it's been a little bit troubled.
Barker's a really quick young guy out of England, made a tremendous debut here with Damian Faulkner at Detroit.
Picking up the action in prototype, Christian Fittipaldi goes through. This is 5th place Scott Pruitt.
Fittipaldi's been on the move. It looks like he's got around Scott Pruitt,
has.
so he had to serve that penalty for the wrong driver starting the race, and Christian is showing similar speed to he had at the green flag here today, trying to march his way forward. Action Express, of course, going through 3 consecutive wins here at the 6 Hours of the Glen.
So make Fittipaldi 5th, Scott Pruitt 6th. In fact, 2 years ago, Action Express took 1-2 in this race.
Their own Darren Law in the winning car.
That's right. Forgot to mention that at the top of the show.
That did him a lot of good. Now he's working with us.
Yeah, really. Where's the love? Darren, responsible posing opinion?
Hey, thanks, guys. I was wondering when you're going to show me a little love for that win with these guys. Action Express does a great job, and I'm happy to contribute to that program. I'm always cheering for them.
Usually 2 years and they forget about you, bud.
I know, 2 years. Come on, it's not that long ago.
Here we're seeing the pass for the lead down. Your teammates, Wild Barbosa, filing it down the inside. I think it was Alex Gurney behind the wheel of the Red Dragon. He was frustrated to lose it right at the death of that race, but just a great performance by Darren and his teammates. You can see them celebrate.
You see representatives of all 4 classes running in the picture: Prototype, Prototype Challenge, GT Le Mans, and GT Daytona. And they also serve who only stand and wait in the pits. International on Fox Sports 1, you ride with the pole-sitting Nissan-powered Oak Racing chassis, still driven by Alex Brundle, who's been in the car since the green flag, chasing Michael Valiente. These two have been battling for, well, all of the 49 laps completed thus far. Valiente has led for 20 laps, while Brundle has been looking for a way by. Corvette runs 1-2 in GTLM. This is the battle for 5th place in class. Patrick Pillet in the number 912 Porsche RSR, and John Edwards in the number 56 BMW.
As we mentioned, the BMWs have shown tremendous pace here this weekend. They're very fast through the turns. That little Z4 really handles very effectively. And this was going to be one of their racetracks. Would it be good here? Would it be not? And shown great lap time, but in race conditions, it just struggles with that little bit of lack of straight line speed. It makes it hard to race for the boys, but right now they're hanging in there. Auberlen runs 4th. We've got John Edwards behind the wheel of the 56 right now in the 6th position as he starts to put the pressure on Pillet. This is where it should come into effect. He's in the draft, in the tow, where the car in front of him is just cutting through the air, so you don't get the same amount of drag on your race car. It just gives you a little bit more straightaway speed than if you're running by yourself. When you get 3 cars in front of you like this, it really punches a big hole in the air for you.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, too. All those cars really make a big difference. If you're up behind that, you're getting a great tow.
Look there, you can see the extra downforce on the GTLM machine versus the GTD. This is where it gets tricky. Do you fire it around the outside? Yes, he does. Chasing down that factory Porsche up ahead of him.
Makes that look
GTD
easy.
Audi to the right.
Yep. Porsche has put an emphasis on the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. Those Porsche RSRs represent the first ever North American only factory Porsche racing effort. And the GTD class car is known as the 911 GT America, the first time Porsche has designed and built a race car specifically for a series here in North America as well. So plenty of involvement and investment by Porsche, and we're glad of it.
A good battle here. Dane Cameron leads right now in the Turner Z4, but this is a battle for 2nd position right now. Dion van Moltke behind the wheel of the 35 car that was started by Spencer Pumpelly. McNeil now behind the wheel. Coop McNeil, first time here at the Glen.
As I mentioned, Corvettes run 1-2 in class. Here's Brian.
Guys, expect the pit stop on the number 4 to take a little bit longer the next time by. If you'll look at the right side of the car, you'll notice that the number panel has begun to peel off the side, and the team has been told by officials that must be replaced on this next stop. They won't pull them off the racetrack right now, but on the next stop, it must be replaced. Right now, they're trying to build as big a gap as they can over 3rd, so that can be done. The 8, the Prototype Challenge entry with Mirko Schultes behind the wheel, had a little bit longer stop the last time. They had to replace the lens on the right side mirror. It had fallen off the car. Schultes could not see a thing, so that stopped a little bit longer for the 3rd place running car in Prototype Challenge.
This is kind of interesting and maybe a little ironic. One of the Corvettes stopped in the 24 Hours of Le Mans 2 weeks ago, and we watched as the team struggled to replace the right side door. Turns out that officials called the car in because the number was not sufficiently illuminated for the nighttime running. Now here's the number 4 car here at Watkins Glen, and it doesn't need to be illuminated, but the number is just simply peeling off the paint.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, this is one of those rules that I don't totally understand. I mean, these cars are electronically timed. It's not like someone's got a pencil and trying to do a lap chart for you as you cross the start-finish line to see what order you're in. So I get it, but I don't really know that it's needed on a pit stop. One of the reasons they want to change these doors quickly is that one rule that is in place that these side view mirrors have to be there. If one gets knocked off when you're trying to bolt a side view mirror on, that would probably take a couple of minutes at least. They can replace these doors typically in about 15 to 20 seconds. So they'll change the door if the side view mirror gets knocked off, and the rule says you have to have them and have it replaced on the next pit stop.
You open the door, you take 2 pit pins out, and you put another one. Now what a pit pin is a, instead of doing a nut and bolt, it's just a pin that replaces the bolt, and you push in the center of it, and a little ball pops in, and you push it down and release the spring tension, and it's locked in place.
Tommy Milner driving the 4 car on the left side of your screen there. Beautiful cars, these C7Rs.
You know, and they got 4s all over the thing too, so I mean, just the fact that one of them of the 3 is having a problem is, I kind of agree with you, Calvin. It won't be much to fix though. They'll probably have some spray adhesive, or they might just
Here
have
we go.
another sticker.
Pit stops for the prototypes. First blip, Alex Brundle bringing in that Nissan-powered number 42 car. You'd expect there'll be a driver change here. We'll have to wait and see. Brian's in the Oak Racing pit box.
Indeed, there will be a driver change. Also, I'm going to be looking for damage on this car after the contact that's happened out on the racetrack. Brundle is climbing out right now, and there will be a driver change. Hoping Tung is climbing in the 42. Looking along the left side of this car, I don't really see any damage, but we do know was a little pushing and shoving out there. Maybe just a slight tire mark down the side, and a little damage to the splitter on the right front, but all the dive planes seem to be in place. That's what's critical as far as aerodynamics go. They'll finish the fueling. The 42 will be underway.
PC leader is in. The 52 car's now the 7 car that has assumed the lead, and Darren's there.
Yeah, Frankie Montecalvo just got out. They're putting on a new set of Continentals. The car looks very clean, no damage. Gunnar Jeanette just got in, and like we were talking about, new tires, new driver.
I think, as Brian said, there wasn't a lot of damage to Alex Brundle's number 42 car, so we did see some carbon fiber fly. So I think if you check the back end of the number 90, there's going to be some diffuser parts missing.
Yep, that's what I looked at that too. I said, well, I know which car's missing.
Well, you just saw some of that rolled up rubber, the marbles or clag as we like to call it, coming out of the side vents of the car as it resumes the racetrack.
And that's what I was talking about. That stuff, if it stays in there too long, it rolls around and it just collects each other. It's so sticky. It's like bubble gum.
Can clog up radiators and cause all kinds of havoc.
It would create almost like a snowball effect underneath the fenders. With the current prototype regulations, they've now got these holes on top of the fenders for stopping the cars from effectively blowing over. So that allows the marbles to escape a little bit more. Here comes that wounded number 90.
Yeah, we'll see the back of that. It's got the side panel torn off.
That wasn't in the incident with the 42, but
no,
you look at the diffuser,
right?
The strakes underneath there, which really have a big effect on the downforce. Darren?
Guys, yeah, there is a lot of damage. It's not too bad. They've got all the strakes underneath there, but you can see them kind of wiggling. So I think as you run on and on throughout the race, these things may come loose. So they got to be really careful. The rest of the body looks good. It looks like it just kind of plowed into the back of it, but it's not too bad. Fresh Continentals on, and new fuel and driver change. Brian?
Memo Rojas climbing behind the wheel of the 01. Scott Pruitt is out, and this team really looking to get back on track. Yes, they had the 2 victories so far this season, but they've also had an 11th at Daytona and 11th at Detroit the last time out. They have not had a season that started this poorly since 2006. They want to get back in the championship hunt. Even though they're in 3rd, they want to get back to their winning ways.
And we've got enough championship rings to fill up one hand and start on the other. You expect more than the Ganassi team has been able to put together this year. But it is the first year for the Ford EcoBoost twin-turbo V6 program, and that involves certain teething issues.
It's a brand new engineering project. You know, that motor was just put together, that deal, and of course Ford is hands-on working on that, trying to use like Mazda does. Look at you talk about hot. Look at Michael Valiente here.
They're plugging him in. He's got that cool
suit.
You see those little tubes, and they've got look at this. This is the guy who's big in the points, second in the points. Cooper McNeil behind the wheel right now on his first visit to Watkins Glen. He's hit someone.
Yeah, chassis damage for sure. I saw the left front is knocked askew. Not worrying about the body work, but I think the chassis itself is also
damage to the left rear as well.
He's not far from pit in.
He and Jerome Bleekemolen amazingly did the 24 Hours of Le Mans with just 2 drivers.
That was amazing.
Pretty awesome.
What a story.
The
10 is in. The Konica Minolta car from Wayne Taylor Racing, Brian.
And they will use the three-driver strategy. Max Angelelli climbing behind the wheel, taking over here, and Angelelli not running full-time, and it's been difficult for him to step out into the endurance role. He wants to race every weekend, but he knows what his position is. He's now the third driver in the long-distance events. Fuel going in, Angelelli struggling with one of the connections in the cockpit a little bit, but the car now back on track.
He hasn't lost any pace, though. He was really impressive in some of the practice sessions, right on the pace. So Max Angelelli has still got what it takes.
Followed out by the 9. Meanwhile, Cooper McNeil has made the 22 pits. Brian.
Still just a couple of spots away, but I can see the damage to the left rear and the left front. There's damage. So looking down the left side of this car, it is hurt. Crew right now looking at the suspension on the left front and looking up in that wheel well. I don't see anything obviously bent, but a lot of marks down the left side of this Porsche, and this is definitely going to set them back in their hunt for a win at the 6 hour. Darren?
Michael, obviously it's hot out there. Doing double stints makes it pretty tough. I mean, they're refilling your cool suit, so as far as running with those guys, we saw a couple of hits with the 42 car. Is the car handling okay?
Well, first I got to say hi to my son at home, Massimo. He kept bugging me to say hi to him, so hey, buddy. Yeah, the 42, I'm not sure why he came and hit me so hard. We were both on cold tires, and I don't think it was intentional. It was a mistake, so I didn't see how much damage is done to the back of the car from that hit, but the B2 cars, I mean, it's a good race, but man, they're fast to the corners, so it really makes, I was really working hard to stay in front of them. And it's hot, and we're going so much quicker this year that it's like qualifying pace out there. So I can't believe we're only 2 hours in. We've got a long way to go. And hopefully we stay out of trouble and we'll be there in the end.
Yeah, staying with two drivers, you guys, like we talked about in the beginning, is gonna be tough.
It really is. Michael's been doing extra workouts. He's been karting, just trying to really prepare. He knew this was going to be the toughest race of the year. You think, oh, 24 hours of Daytona, 12 hours of Sebring. Doing 6 hours here at the Glen with two guys is the hardest race of this championship, physically.
I saw when they jacked this car up that the left front wheel moved on its own. There is something broken there. They haven't addressed it yet, but it's not just a simple tire replacement.
Yeah, that left front corner is hanging off that race car at some point.
Dorsey, I saw the same thing. I can't look in and see whether it's a part of the upright that's broken or one of the control arms, but crew going to work and get that done, that's going to be a lengthy repair, but you are correct. Definitely suspension damage to the left front.
That's a shame. That's one of the lead cars.
The problem is this GTD category is so deep, you have a problem. You just get buried in terms of what sort of points you're going to get here today. There you can see the problem.
We understand there was a spin for the 22, not necessarily contact with another car, but with the tire wall. Watch for the next car. There's the 22.
A little bit later, and then I went down to third gear, and same thing that Indy and locked it.
Just a little bit of driver error there, carried too much speed. We didn't see the impact with the wall, but obviously he hit it. That's what you were talking about, Calvin, before, limping along there. It's broken a strut or something.
And well, here's the Falcon car in the GTLM class.
They're doing the single stints. Brian Sellers started this race, turned it over to Wolf Hensler. Now Brian Sellers back behind the wheel.
Car's very clean still. You can see not even a lot of rubber marks on that one.
Brian Sellers is at a 56-day break in competition, unlike some of the boys who have done 54 hours in the last 15 days. So he's fresh and ready to go. Wolf ran at the Nürburgring last weekend, so he's been in action recently.
They do a lot of testing with this car, and Brian Sellers does a lot of that testing.
You've probably heard the term technical partnership when it comes to motorsports, and you can think of it this way. In the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship, the series represents and showcases some of the world's most sophisticated and high-tech GT cars like this from BMW. But all of that technology means nothing if you can't apply it to the ground. And that's why today, more than ever, it's imperative that the automobile manufacturers work hand-in-hand with the tire manufacturers. At the racetrack, Michelin provides their teams with the tire technology to compete and win. That same tire technology then helps the automotive manufacturer showcase their latest street offerings. And the timeline between racetrack and street, well, it's becoming shorter and shorter. The C7 Corvette Stingray comes exclusively with Michelin tires that were designed by a Michelin race tire engineer embedded within Corvette Racing. The incredible Porsche 918 Spyder supercar, another Michelin exclusive, plays off the Porsche 919 hybrid that we saw race at Le Mans just a couple of weeks ago. And the new BMW M3 and M4 will also roll out on Michelin technology that utilizes compounds that Michelin was using on track just a couple of years ago. So in the automotive world, the sum is only as good as the parts. And that's why Michelin strives to build technical partnerships that provide the performance that drivers, whether on track or on the street, demand.
Thanks, Brian. On board the number 56 GTLM Porsche.
John Edwards has got that car up to the 4th spot right now, so having a good, strong run here. His teammate Bill Auberlen runs in 3rd, so BMW's looking pretty good in race trim, but not the outright speed that we saw in qualifying. So have to see if the Rahal boys can work their strategy magic and get them in the right spot for the finish here. They're leading the championship, but they have not yet had a win yet this year with the 55 car or the 56 for that matter.
This car is overdue for its pit stop. I would think it's coming. They'll be ready for him when he gets there with probably 4 tires and fuel, I would assume.
Coming up on 17 minutes from the end of our 2nd hour. Keep in mind, Tequila Patrón North American Endurance Cup points will be awarded at the end of 3 hours. So lots of teams.
Oh,
we've got a
nasty.
collision.
Oh,
Amo Rojas.
Rojas, you're right. He's made contact. He's got damage to the back, substantial.
Big damage.
GTD car.
Oh, that was close, man. Ooh,
that was really close.
And he's not going to see, I mean, he's got that rear wing askew. He would not see anything, even if he was looking in that side view mirror to see the traffic coming. That
His end plate's laying right out in the middle of the racetrack, too.
Wow. It was the 73 GTD car also involved.
Look at this wheel. Holy cow, look at the back wheel.
Brian?
The entire rear of this car, the 01, the Ford Riley, has been pushed to the right. You can see it's just kind of been smeared along the wall. The wing, the under tray, the left rear, significant damage. The question is, has it twisted the gearbox where it mounts to the rest of the chassis? I can't quite tell, and I'm not sure that the crew will be able to tell from here. It's going to be a long, long repair if they can even effect one. Not the good news that the 01 wanted. We talked about how they are struggling as of late, and the struggle continues.
Boy, oh boy. Full course caution, our first of this Sahlen 6 hours. There you see Jaap van Langen getting out of the number 73. Also involved, we don't know quite how yet. As we approach the top of the hour once again, 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Look at the debris kind of right in that area, because it's a lot of metal and stuff there, right? The whole rear wing.
Well, now that we have our first full course, it would be a good idea, I think, to check out the entire circuit and do some debris collection and sweeping if possible. See if we can see what happened to the 01. Well, he was sideways before.
Well, that was pretty strange. They were out of control when we first saw them, so.
We'll have to wait and see. I saw at first glance that I think the 73 comes down on him.
Yeah.
And he missed the end of the tire wall.
Yeah, that wasn't a late dive bomb by Memo there. I really feel he had the position to be able to make that move. Look how close it was there with that prototype.
Let's listen to the radio.
Having there, Memo. I was inside the GT car and he didn't see me and he turned on me. I had my whole car was inside him. I don't know why he turned on me. It wasn't like I clipped his corner. He just was next to him. I don't know.
It's pretty calm for that incident to be talking.
I agree.
Normally you'd be fired up.
It wasn't his fault, though. I mean, you can see what happened. He got turned. Oh, here's another
now
problem.
46.
This could be the debris field from that crash that this car's run through.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They might want to use this opportunity to do a track sweep.
46 car was actually qualified for 4-line by Marco Bononomi. He was one of the Audi factory drivers in the P1 category at Le Mans. Had a great run going early till he got attacked when Nicolas Lapierre actually lost control of the Toyota in the wet conditions. I'm sure anyone watching Le Mans will remember that. Really a turning point in the event, because the number 3 Audi that day was taken out of the action, but he got loaned by the Audi factory to 4-line as one of their third drivers this weekend.
Well, we understand it was a simple spin at the chicane and not contact with any other car causing that problem. While we have this first full course caution, let's take this opportunity to recap the highlights of the race thus far. Now nearly 2 hours old. Early contact in the chicane.
Yeah, the bus stop, you said it, Dorsey, was always going to be a problem area today.
Always is. Anytime those high brake zones. Here's the other one I talked about.
Oh. Couple of friends out there on the racetrack, right?
Yeah, right. Not so friends.
55 in the 911.
Here's Alex Brundle getting into the back of Michael Valiente, who got out of the car and said, just a simple mistake, nothing more than that.
That was cool. Good hard racing.
Yep.
That was a little over-optimistic at the apex. You see Viper getting together with one Extreme Speed Motorsports.
Good car control.
Yeah, real good car
control. See how
Ben
fast
Keating
they're
behind
going.
the wheel at that time.
Here's Cooper McNeil spinning the number 22 Porsche, and he suffered that kind of front-end damage. Lower control arm, we are told, at the left front corner of the car, and another lengthy fix. Let's take a look at the leaderboards in class, beginning with the prototypes.
Look at this, Richard Westbrook. They're looking for their first victory of the season. Hooping tongue. They're hoping he does a good job, I'm sure.
Ouch.
Oh, boy.
In Prototype Challenge, Martin Fuentes over Bruno Junqueira. Yes, that Bruno Junqueira from the Champ Car days. GT Le Mans.
There they are, the 911 and the 55.
Yeah, Porsche, BMW. But remember, the Corvettes ran 1-2 in that class for some time, and they are lurking after pit stops.
Dane Cameron continues to lead. You talk about double stints in those prototypes. That's about 1 hour and 30 on the clock for the GTD. It's about 2 hours. They go a lot longer on fuel. They're going to be exhausted boys when they get out.
You know, Ganassi's car's behind the wall, guys. Memo's brought it back to the garage, or is taking it there.
Brian, what can you tell us?
Well, when the full course caution comes out, pit lane is closed and you cannot come to pit lane. However, this full course caution did not fall at a very good time for some of the teams. The 55 BMW was just in. They had to do emergency service. They can take fuel only. They were about to run out, so they can come in, put fuel in it, and after they serve their pit stop, they're going to have to come back in. You got to pay a little bit of a penalty. You can't gain an advantage, but if you need some fuel or maybe a tire because you've cut a tire down, it's the only reason you can come into pit lane when it's closed is for what's termed emergency service. And we saw the 55 and now the 57. The Ferrari from Krone Racing do just that.
Look at this mess.
This is scary.
Try to get this car behind the pits, back to the garage area, and
pit
nobody's left enough room.
Yeah, pit out. There's no access road back to the...
2014 marks a new era for sports car racing in North America with the debut of the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. The TUDOR Championship brings together the best of two series that ran in parallel for more than a decade. The Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series and the American Le Mans Series presented by Tequila Patrón are now one organization under IMSA sanction. This year's inaugural 13-race schedule includes internationally recognized events such as the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the 12 Hours of Sebring, the 6 Hours of the Glen, and the Petit Le Mans.
The TUDOR Championship includes 4 classes of competition, again bringing together the best of both worlds. The marquee prototype category pairs the Daytona prototypes from the Rolex series with cars that competed in the ALMS P2 class, plus the revolutionary Delta Wing DWC 13.
The single-make prototype challenge class is virtually unchanged from 2013 when it was part of the ALMS. There are also 2 Grand Touring divisions. The former ALMS GT, recognized as the best racing of its kind in the world, continues as GT Le Mans, while the Rolex Series GT division has evolved into GT Daytona, a class including vehicles very similar to European GT3 machinery.
It is indeed a new era for North American sports car racing and has its own championship within a championship known as the Tequila Patrón North American Endurance Cup. Today is round 3 of the Cup. Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen, live on Fox Sports 1. Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader. I'm Bob Varsha. Darren Law and Brian Till are in the pit lane. We are still under our first full core caution of the race as we approach the end of our second of 6 hours.
See these drivers weaving around. A lot of people think it's trying to keep heat in the tires. Doing that will really not generate much heat. They're trying to clean the tires off. Those little marbles of rubber that are kind of around the racetrack, if they build up, when you go back to green, you really don't have a lot of grip initially. So they're just trying to keep the tires clean. To generate tire temperature, better to really work the brake pedal, because the brake rotor will get hot. It will just transfer that heat through the wheel and then into the tire.
Many years ago, in the days of the old Camel GT, which raced here at Watkins Glen, I once did a broadcast with driver Whitney Gantz, who used to bill himself as the world's fastest college art history major.
He was quick.
Great guy. Used to race with John Paul Jr. in a
Buick GTP
Buick
car,
Turbo.
right? Yeah.
Yep. Well, we were at the start of the race, and of course, everybody was doing the swerving back and forth. And I said to Whitney, why do you do that sort of thing? He said, I don't know. Everybody else did, so I did.
I love it.
There's Jan Magnussen, who's been in that Corvette.
We said keep an eye on the clock. Remember that there's the same amount of points awarded for the Patrón Endurance Cup at the end of this race as there are at the 3-hour mark. So we're now like 55 minutes plus away from that. Teams will start to strategize around that a little bit. They're not going to throw their race away by trying to go for it, but if they can, they'll try and plan their pit stops and everything around, trying to be in the right spot at the right time when the clock hits 3 hours to go.
While we have a moment, let's take a look at our Honda news and notes for sports car racing here in the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship. We talked about the 2 long-distance 24-hour race wins for Audi in 2 different types of race cars over the previous 2 weekends. Pretty extraordinary performance. They could add a 3rd in a very different car today. IMSA regular Giancarlo Fisichella won his class at Le Mans, 2nd victory in class for the former Formula One driver. And as we mentioned at our most recent races, IMSA lost its co-founder and a very, very influential figure in sports car racing when John Bishop passed away June 5th at the age of 87. Let's catch up with activities down in the pit lane. Here's Brian.
Alex Brundle had a good go of it and a great pole position, but we were just talking about how busy it was out there and a bit exciting. Contact with the 90, is that just incidental, or were we running a little rough out there this morning?
Nah, he just jumped in front of me and got on the brake pedal. I lose all the downforce then from the front of the car. I couldn't get it stopped in time. Mine don't stop that quick, so I don't know what he's got. But yeah, I didn't mean to get into the back of him anyway. It looks like no harm done for both guys, so that's good. And we're both still running well. It was a tough one out there. I mean, I'm sure you all watched the first lap, and I didn't feel like I had too much of a chance heading down to the bus stop, but it's a long one and we've got pace. So we'll just try and make the most of our own package and head towards finish.
What did you learn in that first stint that you can kind of take to that last hour that we'll run today? How to make sure you get the 42 up there and maybe have a chance to win this thing? You guys have been running so quick from the time you unloaded.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just got to try and take advantage of traffic, like I did. I don't know which one of the Taylors it was, but with the Taylor racing car earlier on, and try and get ahead of them that way, because there's no chance we can out-drag them anywhere. So we're gonna try and jump around the outside if it's all possible when there's a GT on the inside or something like that. We've got speed. It's just we can't use it. If we can get track position, we should be gone. But easier said than done out there.
It's one of those deals, guys, of everybody may be running quick lap times, but it's where you make your time around this racetrack that makes it difficult.
You know, these P2 cars are momentum cars. When you got them up on a momentum and they're not in traffic, they can run a number, maybe even faster than the other prototypes. The problem is when they get bogged down in traffic, or if they have to go from slow speed to high speed, they don't accelerate quite as well.
It's very similar to the BMWs in the GTLM category. They've got great lap time, but they don't quite have the straightaway speed. Yeah. It's hard to race. If you suddenly get bunched up with one of these cautions, it's hard to get going. At the start of the race, we saw that with Prio as well, and when we see it on the restarts as well, I think it's going to be the same scene.
Absolutely.
Alex Brundle mentioned that some of those strakes and vanes and dive planes and so forth have been ripped off the cars, but they don't seem to be any the worse for wear. I remember a Formula One race at Monza a few years ago when Fernando Alonso was driving for Renault with the elaborate Calliope front wings they have on Formula One cars these days. Straight line to chicane at Monza, hit a few speed bumps, ripped all those little bits and pieces so expensively manufactured, and actually went quicker when it finished. We've got some more time before the green flag waves. We'll take it in the form of another short break. We're going to pause for just 30 seconds, however, this time, so we can hear the following message from Chrysler. Stand by, we'll be right back. Getting a push where? Behind the wall?
You lose first gear.
are back at Watkins Glen. Drivers tightening up those belts one more time before they turn them loose. Don't forget, you can go to foxsports.com/motor for live onboard video streams of the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship Series from today's race right now. Open your computer, get all the onboards while you're watching our live coverage from the Glen, and enhance your viewing experience. There's a look down into the toe of the boot. The track never quite straight and level. Lots of elevation changes, lots of turns around these 3.4 miles.
It's a fantastic racetrack, and I don't care what sort of experience you have. Think about Giancarlo Fisichella, over 200 Grand Prix starts, driven the best racetrack in the world. He came here for the first time this week and just said, I love this racetrack. It is something special.
I don't know how you could not like this. I mean, to drive it, the long course is just one of the best circuits in the world. Absolutely stunning to drive, very fast. It's a driver's track, there's no doubt about that.
Yep. This caution brought about by a heavy crash in the final corner, not involving that car, although it might look it, but because the 01 car from Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates in the hands of Memo Rojas, a heavy backward impact. There is where the car is right now, back in the paddock, being not urgently worked on. I wonder if we've seen the last of the 01. Let's go to Darren Law.
Giancarlo, we know you guys are having some electrical problems. We heard it was the alternator, and I keep seeing him changing batteries. Sometimes I know that can create problems with power steering and other issues. Are you fighting the car?
Yeah, a bit. The drink bottle didn't work too, and some problems with the battery, so we changed it twice, and lots of traffic, and even our pace is not good enough. Maybe the BOP it's a bit unfair. We need to see something for the next race. Now we gained the lap we lost with the safety car. That's good for us. Let's try to do our best, go through the end of the race, and let's go the best results.
And Watkins Glen, what do you think of Watkins Glen?
It's a great circuit. I really like it. I enjoy it. So not too bad. Be careful.
All right, thanks guys.
BOP, of course, is balance of performance. With a series as diverse as sports car racing, 4 different classes, each with its own mechanical formula, the object of the balance and performance is to make those adjustments that allow all the cars to compete together. 6, 8, 10 cylinder engines, turbo, non-turbo, you name it. It takes a lot of research and effort to write a rule book that lets everybody have an equal shot at victory. So from time to time, they adjust this or that using air restrictors, weight, fuel flow, you name it. Here was the accident involving Memo Rojas.
I think Memo was spot on his radio communication to the team, saying I was inside the 73, should have seen me and turned in on me. So you'd lay that one at the door of the slower car in that incident. Sometimes the faster prototype do push the issue a little bit, Dorsey, but I think the 73 should have seen Memo. He was far enough alongside.
Yeah, and there's plenty of room in that corner for both of them to be able to make it too, had he seen him. But it is a risk you take when you make an outside pass, and you don't know who the other driver is.
And it showcases what Watkins Glen is all about. It is an extremely fast racetrack, and there is Armco barrier not far away from the edge of the track.
Here's a look at the remaining TUDOR United SportsCar Championship schedule. Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, known to race fans everywhere simply as Most Park in Bowmanville, Ontario, Canada. That'll be July 13th with all 4 classes in action. That ought to be quite the rumble. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, July 25th. Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. The American Nuremberg, or Nürburgring, I should say, August 10th. VIR in Danville, Virginia on August 24th. Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, in company with the World Endurance Championship on September 20th. And Road Atlanta, the Petit Le Mans, 4th and final round of the Patrón Endurance Cup. Brian Till.
Ralph Gilles is president of SRT Motorsport. And Ralph, I mean, when you look at the history of Dodge, it's the 100th anniversary this year. That's got to be special.
Yeah, the whole year we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Dodge. It's been around a long time, a very storied brand, and it was fitting to kind of come back to the classic red and racing white colors, you know.
I was going to say, I know a lot of your fans really appreciate Viper Red and Racing White.
More than we expected. We got a lot of good feedback as soon as the pictures broke yesterday and the testing started and people saw the pictures. Unbelievable feedback, you know, and it conjures up a lot of good memories. What's the winningest livery we've ever had? The late 90s we won quite a few races at Le Mans, and finally the overall win at Daytona in 2000 was something people are still talking about today.
Yeah, I know that you guys talk about it a lot, and there's no more rabid fan than a Viper owner, but there was something else that I saw. You got here very quickly from Detroit. What is it that you drove over here?
I drove the new Challenger Hellcat. It's interactive. People that are lucky enough to be trackside here at Watkins Glen are all over it. They love it. They know what it's all about. We're going to tell you more about that in the coming weeks. The Dodge brand's got a lot of good news with that vehicle.
A little bit of horsepower in that.
A little bit obscene.
All right, thanks, Ralph. Congratulations on 100 years at Dodge.
And we are back under green, just like that, here at Watkins Glen. Let me correct myself. At Mosport, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, our next round of the championship, we'll have 3 of the 4 classes in action. No PC class, which takes about 10 cars out of the mix, but it'll still be crazy.
It's going to be a fun one. We talk about the speed here. Motorsport, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is a whole other deal, Dorsey.
One of the extreme speed cars at 2 is stopped on track. I was about to comment on how much rubber's bouncing down the racetrack. They got it fired.
And then it died.
It starts, but won't stay started. You want me driving on the starter?
Meanwhile, up front, Richard Westbrook has taken over the wheel of the number 90 Visit Florida machine.
Westy set sail when he's taking off.
It's Oz Negri right behind him, who's a lap down. Remember, those guys had some problems early in the going. Pintung is actually the second place car. Actually, Barbosa's got around him, so the 42 car drops to 3rd in the classification, and Action Express have rebounded nicely. They now sit in the 2nd spot, having to serve that penalty for having the wrong driver start the race.
And that was a strange snafu. This car sitting offline, but not what I would consider a safe spot.
It's what golfers would call a bad lie. He's
exactly.
going to coast backwards down the hill.
I always seem to get those when I play golf.
That's where I got it from. I hear it all the time from Calvin.
I thought a bad lie is when you got caught doing something.
I can get a bad lie on the tee box.
Love the sound of the big V8s in these Daytona prototypes.
Interesting to see right now the gap between Joao Barbosa and Richard Westbrook is 3.2 seconds. We saw that number 5 car flying in the early part of the stint for Christian Fittipaldi. You'll have to wait and see if Barbosa can catch Westy here as we get some laps under our belt. Talk about the damage to the back end of that number 90 machine. Richard Westbrook actually doesn't mind a car that's a little loose, Dorsey. So if they have lost any downforce at the back end of the 90 car, he probably won't mind it as much as Michael Valiente does. And Michael said the car was still pretty sound. Oh, drama here in turn 1.
Turn 1, yeah, exit turn 1.
Porsche and one of the Ferraris. There may be more to it than the 2 cars we see as we go back to full course caution.
Kind of wondering if he's going to go pick up the 2 car that's stranded out there, and this just happened.
63 car, they're the most recent winner in the GTD category at Detroit. Brandon Davis been drafted in for the weekend as the 3rd driver there, alongside Balzan and Westphal. Let's take a look at see what happened down in turn 1, Dors.
Brake zone.
He was just an innocent bystander there. There was a move down the inside of Jamaziak that just pushed him out wide.
That's a 33 Porsche right there. Look, it's a dive bomb. Definite dive bomb. 23 Porsche.
23, yeah. Mario Farnbacher.
That car was having alternator issues earlier.
Yeah. So he's probably just in hurry-up mode, just frustrated. That's a team that's really high in the points right now, and had a delay on pit.
Here.
Well, let's get back to the number 2 Honda. There it is from Extreme Speed. Brian, what do we know?
Checked in with the team. They're not exactly sure if it's a fuel pump issue or not. The car will refire, but they can't get a lot of RPM out of the engine. It won't run very fast. The engine won't run very fast, and when they put it in gear, the car stalls. So they're just struggling right now, trying to get a tow if that's what it's going to take to get them back, and then they'll have to investigate it a little bit more here with their computer systems.
That could be throttle position sensor too. These are all fly-by-wire, and what that means is you push your foot on the throttle pedal, but there's not a throttle cable that goes back to the injector. It's actually run through a computer.
No mechanical linkage, just all electronic signals. V6 Honda Turbo in that car. Here's another look at the incident that brought out our second full course caution of the day. We'll take a break. Welcome back to Watkins Glen. Small part of the crowd enjoying beautiful summer weather and a great race. The Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen. Sahlen's is a family-owned meatpacking company out of Buffalo, New York. If you were wondering, longtime partners of racing in several forms, including another family-owned operation, the Nonamaker Racing family from North Canton, Ohio. But being based out of Buffalo, Joe Sahlen is a big sports fan. Earlier in this weekend, Brian Till spoke with a representative of one of the Sahlen company's other sporting interests.
Kristen Edmonds is a part of the Western New York Flash, Joe Sahlen's female soccer team here in the U.S. And Kristen, I know that you guys are big race fans. We're standing here next to the Sahlen's cars, but everybody's talking World Cup right now. So we're going to step back from racing a little bit, talk soccer. How exciting has this been watching the World Cup and watching the USA team?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting, especially for soccer, women's and men's. Watching our own country get out of the group of death was pretty amazing. So it's been great. And you kind of alluded to it already. You said women's soccer. So next year is the World Cup for women. I mean, I know you would like to be a part of that. How exciting is that looking forward? It's only a year away. Yeah, I mean, coming from the Men's World Cup and going straight to the Women's World Cup is 2 years in a row. I mean, that's an exciting thing as it is. And then for the women, I mean, I can't wait to watch it next summer or maybe be a part of it. You never know. Yeah, we hope you are a part of it. And of course, it will be on Fox. So you find fans of all different types down here, even soccer fans. Come to the races, guys.
Well, there's no reason why they shouldn't. We're watching soccer. They can watch racing. And as Brian mentioned, the Women's World Cup in Canada in 2015 will be here on your local Fox stations, as will the Men's World Cup come 2018 and 2022 in Sochi, or in Russia, and Qatar in the Middle East, if I'm not mistaken. So look toward Fox for soccer at the highest level in the future. Oz Negri in the number 60 car from Michael Shank Racing is Brazilian. One of his great rivals, Memo Rojas, with the Chip Ganassi Racing car, is from Mexico. So when their respective countries met up in the World Cup, obviously, it was a big moment.
Yeah, there was a little debate on Twitter, and it was a 0-0, a tied game, and it's like, how do we decide this? I suggested a penalty shootout here at the Glen, and they are up for it. We needed some goalkeepers. I think Mike Shank was on board, but we never heard back from Chip Ganassi, so the contest never happened. But both those teams are doing well. Brazil went through yesterday in the first round of knockout, and Mexico are currently 1-up on the Dutch squad, so the boys will be happy about that.
I spoke with Bruno Junqueira about the Brazilian team going through. I expected him to be happy. He was like, well, yeah, we got through, but we didn't play very well. So, man, they have some high expectations for their team in Brazil. Now, one team we haven't talked about much in the race today is Dempsey Racing, the number 27 GTD class Porsches out there in the hands of Patrick Dempsey's partner in the project, Joe Foster. Meanwhile, Patrick Dempsey, who's already had one stint in the car, is standing by with Darren Law.
Patrick, you just got out. I know it's hot. We've talked to a lot of people running. Some are running double stints in the beginning. I don't think they're going to do it now. Handling has been an issue. Traffic has been an issue. How is your car?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to struggle with the same thing. It's really quite warm in the car. Grip goes away, halfway through your stint, so you're really pushing understeer. You're really fighting that for the most part. And then traffic is the big thing that you have to be really careful with. We got a spotter, which is helping us, but you got to give everybody room to get by and just race your own race and see where you end up. And we're doing okay so far.
All right. Now I heard earlier this week you took your family go-karting?
Yeah. Up in 1,000 Oaks up there, MB2 was fun. Took the kids go-karting and the whole family, and got a little hairy.
And what happened?
My wife ran into my daughter and took her out and jumped up over the wall.
Okay, well, we're going to try and avoid that this weekend.
Yeah, I want to say hi to my family in Texas and everybody watching. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Patrick.
It's always fun till someone gets hurt.
That is exactly what happens every time I take my family to go-kart track. Somebody ends up on their
want to go go-karting? I'm like, no, I'm just going to hurt myself.
Nothing good can come of that.
No.
Patrick Dempsey loves his racing. He was down in Brazil recently testing a Porsche Cup car
tell you what we're looking at here, Bob, just breaking in quickly. The Action Express boys are pitted. Look at the clock. Prototypes can do about 45 minutes. I think they're thinking about that strategy of the 3-hour mark.
That's right, because there will be 5 points going to the top team in each class at the halfway mark of this 6-hour race. It's coming up about 48 minutes, or 42 minutes from right now. Stay with us.
It's a great track. I love to go to Watkins Glen.
From a true, driver standpoint, that is one of the most fun tracks you can drive.
It's not a sprint race. You have to manage the race and put yourself in a position to be in contention for the win.
Glen is a very special circuit, a very unique circuit, and one of the premier road circuits that there is.
And at that world-renowned circuit, a favorite of drivers from around the world, we continue with hour 2 of the Sahlen's 6 Hours of the Glen here on Fox Sports 1, live from Watkins Glen. With Dorsey Schrader and Calvin Fish, I'm Bob Varsha. Brian Till's taking a break down the pit lane. Darren Law is on duty. And a decision was just handed down by the stewards that affects the front runners in the overall. Max Angelelli in the number 10 car from Wayne Taylor Racing, the Konica Minolta car, has been assessed a stop and 60-second hold penalty for running the red light at the pit lane. So Mad Max is giving himself a lot of work to do.
We also saw that moment with GTD cars down into turn 1, and the 23 car is now being given a stop and hold penalty for 75 seconds. Mario Farnbacher behind the wheel of the Alex Job Racing Team Seattle Porsche, so he's going to have to serve that penalty when we go back to green.
Which we expect shortly. There you see the rolled up rubber offline on the racetrack that has been a significant part of the event thus far. After the race, they love to have the drivers roll through that stuff, pick it up on hot, sticky tires, and make sure the car makes minimum weight. But when you are at racing speeds, the last thing you want is the decreased grip that comes with running over those little pellets of rolled up rubber. Safety car lights are out. The BMW heads for the pit lane. Richard Westbrook at the controls of the number 90 Visit Florida Corvette DP will lead Ho Pin Tung in the number 42 car as the 90 and 42 continue their battle at the front.
I tell you, Westy nearly beat me at golf the other day.
As a matter of fact, you did. And the fact that he nearly did was a story.
The fact that he's boasting about being beaten says a lot.
Green flag.
It was close.
We are green once again after our second full course caution at the Sahlen 6 Hours. Westbrook, Ho Pin Tung, Max Angelelli, who will need to complete his penalty under the green flag. Joao Barbosa now in the 5. Brian Frizzell in the 9. Both of those Action Express Daytona prototype Corvettes. Catherine Legg, the only female driver in the field, is now at the controls of the Delta Wing, 6th place.
You're looking at it right there. We're on board with Jan Magnussen. Catherine's right in front of him. And Timmy Keane, now team manager at Delta Wing, was with Chip Ganassi Racing, won many, many championships over the year. A lot of experience, great passion, and he's trying to bring something to this squad. They had a really successful test last month and pretty bullish about their chances here and for the rest of the year.
Big field snakes its way through the infield chicane, or bus stop as we sometimes call it, because it looks like one, or at least the famous one at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium.
Race control is reviewing that restart we just got.
Yeah, we may not be done with the penalties.
Here on board with Max Angelelli. He's still got to serve that penalty, remember. You got to wait till you go back to green flag racing, so it's a true penalty. Going to cost you about 15 to 20 seconds just rolling down pit lane, plus any stop or issue. Let's listen in.
Okay, Max, we got a penalty here. When we go green, we're going to have to come to the penalty box and serve the penalty. It's going to be a stop and a hold for 60. You didn't stop there at the red light and pit out. You went through it.
Nobody told me to stop.
Well,
we can't see it from down here. The red light's the red light. I mean, that's your responsibility to see that. It's just like normal race conditions. I'd pit out there.
Yeah, I think Max.
Yeah, just a reminder would have been nice.
Drama here.
Action. One of the
John
Mazdas.
Edwards there.
John Edwards. One of the PC cars at the back.
Yeah, I think he was avoiding action around the LMPC car. There's turned it around.
That's fourth place car in class, the number 7.
Martin Fuentes, one of the Star Works entries, have shown a lot of form here this year. You can see the rear wing side plate, so there may have been some contact.
This car is on a drive-through penalty for passing under yellow. So lots of penalties here.
On board with Angelelli as he heads for the penalty box. You saw in that replay during the radio transmission, the officials there at the pit lane turned around.
He's pulled behind the sign.
He's pulled up to the sign rather than into the box.
There's an arrow there, Max.
Well, Max hasn't
It's
driven.
not Italian.
He hasn't driven since Sebring. Maybe he's a little rusty.
Pull up.
Have they started the clock yet, or do you have to be in the box before they start?
Stop.
He almost ran the penalty box.
It's getting busy down there.
Boy, oh boy. Take a number.
I'm telling you.
There's a look of disbelief.
This is tough.
It's a big penalty.
Yeah, it's half a lap or more, so this is going to really hurt them strategy-wise for the rest of the game.
We can't see it either.
Well, to be fair to Max, I'm not sure where that red light is.
They're usually pretty visible and they're really bright.
Well, yeah, you would.
It's just to the driver's left.
Over there on
yeah,
the
right
wall.
there.
I think it's.
Meanwhile, Westbrook stretched the lead on Hoop and Tongue.
Yeah, he's really checking out.
3.9. So Barbosa has dropped back a little bit. So something. Well, they made that pit stop.
There goes Max.
So
So he'll be furious.
Now let's see what happened in the turn 10-11 area.
Oh, just a spin here.
Yeah. Fuentes spun.
He's going to back right in front of the Mazda.
The Mazda goes off.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, look at this. Edwards has taken evasive action early, and still the car tries to get to him.
Wow.
Edwards is saying, I don't want any part of this. Swings out wide, and then suddenly the car's coming at him again.
I don't know if he put that car in reverse or just let it roll, but I mean, his intent was to get out of harm's way, but there was cars back there he didn't know about.
Magnus and Gavin running 1-2 for the Corvette squad.
And
Looking
look at
really
this
strong.
on the front straightaway coming in the brake
too
zone.
wide through the chicane.
Right in that middle of that mess is Brian Sellers running third in the Falcon Tire entry number 17 there, that bright neon green and blue livery.
See, the Ganassi guys have done a good job. Got the 0-1 back on the racetrack. Looks like a brand new car.
Yes, it does.
Look at 4 classes running together, 4 races within a race. This is what the TUDOR Championship is all about.
On board with the 01.
Those guys did a heck of a lot of work to get that back out there.
Yeah.
Currently shown 11th in class and 44th in the overall, although that was the last time past start finish. Memo Rojas may have made a few passes like this one.
And hasn't been a good couple of events. Remember at Detroit they had that clutch issue where they really struggled to even get Pruitt enough drive time to score points that day, but they managed to do so. Spoke to Mike Gogara, the team manager, about that. Here we've got problems for the Delta Wing running slowly.
Catherine Legg.
She's moved offline intentionally, I think.
That's
might
turn
be
10.
Mechanical issue, I'm sure.
The Achilles heel with this Delta Wing this year has been the gearbox, and speaking to Timmy Keane, he said they'd changed the bevel gear, changed the design on that. He's also asked the drivers not to use the traction control because that was creating a lot of oscillation in the rear end and potentially braking stuff as well. So they're trying to think it through, but ideally I think they need to beef up that gearbox a little bit.
That car is built on the premise of being very lightweight, so they're using really lightweight gears and things in that gearbox.
They're also running a differential. They've been running an open diff, Dorsey, all
Yeah.
season. They're now running the diff in that car, which should help things out as well.
Oh, around the outside, this is a risky move.
That's that one-line racetrack, right?
Yeah, right. There's only 3 lines there.
We'll have to reshoot that feature after the race. Congrats to Bill Auberlin up ahead. You saw he got chopped a bit there at turn 1 by a PC car.
Yeah.
But he left room.
Edwards is on a charge there after that little evasive action that he took. He did the right thing, and it nearly came back to haunt him.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Here's our GTD leader now, Marcus Paltala. The silver driver. We talk about the Pro-Am categories with PC and GTD. You've got to have a Pro-Am driver in the car. He's one of the best. It's a little bit of a gray area throughout the whole field, really. It's all about finding the best Pro-Am driver literally in the world so that you don't lose too much speed. And he's certainly at that end of the category, but he and Dane have teamed up really well. They're leading right now, qualified second. They did have that wheel came loose yesterday in free practice that gives them some concerns, but they've made some changes, and they're hopeful that that'll be okay for this 6-hour event.
Paltala, another flying Finn.
Really good. He's another one of those 5 drivers in this field who have done 54 hours of racing at the end of today in the last 3 weekends. That's quite a stint.
Let's look at the 09 leader in the PC category, Bruno Junqueira, at the controls with that bright yellow helmet we all became so familiar with in the kart and champ car series.
And I think this is a great example of some of the talent that you see in some of these Pro-Am categories. I mean, Bruno Junqueira was a Champ Car star, single-seater star on the verge of Formula 1 stardom with Williams. Just lost out on that drive to Jenson Button, and we've seen what Jenson has done with his career in Formula 1. Indy 500 pole sitter, and he's running in the PC category, so there's talent throughout this field.
Now more on the number 10 after that long stay in the penalty box. Darren is with Ricky Taylor.
Ricky, that penalty was pretty harsh. Stop plus 60, and I mean, that makes it tough to come back from with as competitive as the field is. What do you guys do from here?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, you can't blame Max. He hasn't been in the car in a couple of races, but really harsh penalty. We went a lap down. The only thing going for us right now is we're going to stop ahead of the cars that are ahead of us on track. So if a yellow comes out, we'll stay out and hopefully inherit that lap back. But stop plus 60 was pretty harsh.
All right, guys. I mean, basically, they got to play a real strategy game here and see if they can somehow get back on the lead lap.
Yeah, well, they pitted along with the Action Express cars, and I think everyone had the eye on the clock in terms of wanting to be not in pit lane or just having made a stop just before that 3-hour-to-go mark where their points were awarded for the Patrón Endurance Cup. But it backfired on them a little bit by Max having a little faux pas there by not noticing the red light.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 points for the top 5 positions at the halfway mark of this race, edging towards that Tequila Patrón North American Endurance Cup title in each of our 4 classes. In his last All-Star game ever. It should be an emotional and unforgettable night. Special coverage begins at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1, followed by the 2014 MLB All-Star game at 7:30 on Fox. Looking forward to that. There is your race leading number 90. Whoa, the number 8 has gone around.
Yeah, this is one of the leading lights in the PC category. Mirko Schulteis behind the wheel right now, who's running in the 4th spot. His teammate had led this event earlier in the day.
It's a funny place to spin. He's not even to the corner yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonder if his brakes locked or something.
Or maybe got help.
You notice this patch on the racetrack. That'll give you a different level of grip, I would think, perhaps, than the asphalt around it. Might that have caught him out?
It's hard to say without seeing a replay. A number of things could have happened. He just tried to shift down too quickly.
Yeah.
Or,
oh boy, he might get hung up here on the curve.
Come on, get on it or you're going to get
Don't
stuck.
get stuck. Make sure you do not get stuck there.
Yeah,
My
no, that was
thinking exactly.
that was not the right move. He's lucky.
backing
He
up.
is really lucky.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He was within a whisker of being
Good job.
high-sided.
Good job.
You
Keep
could
it
just
up.
cut it 90 degrees left. He can get into this asphalt runoff area in the foreground.
Not sure if he's got a clear view. There's a bit of a brow of a hill there.
Yeah,
He
it
looks
is a
backwards
big hill.
down the track. I'm not sure if he can
You
see
okay?
far
I
enough to
can't
know.
see it.
Okay. He's trying to get to the point he can see down the hill, I think. He's asking for help. I said, corner workers, give me help here.
Be good. Should be good.
So what happened yesterday?
Nice job. Nice job.
He literally could not see
Yeah.
down the hill.
Yeah.
Keep pushing, Mirko. Keep pushing.
Getting the inspiration that's needed in moments like this in the race. Really critical that the guys are on your side. Oh, here we see it.
Oh, yeah.
help.
See, I thought
Yeah.
it was help. You don't spin that early in that corner, and it's not
Yeah.
that hard of a brake zone. You're just slowing the car down a little bit, not that much.
Wobbling there, just looking to the inside, and suddenly Merkel came across his bow. You can't get out. When you try and get out of it, you actually make the matter worse.
Yeah, you do.
Because you can't clear him completely, and then as the guy's turned in, you're going to spin him around. If you go side by side, you may trade some paint, but when you try and get out of the situation that you're halfway into, suddenly you're typically going to turn that car around, and we'll have to wait and see what happens from here.
John Edwards must be wondering,
Yeah,
what do I
he's-
have to do? Everybody's flying back and forth across my windscreen.
to John earlier in the weekend, just talking about being smart for this 6-hour race. He's trying to be smart, but he's backfiring on him.
How can I be smart with all these dummies around me?
All eyes on the clock now. As you see, just under 21 minutes remaining to that important halfway mark.
Great performance here by the Falcon team. They've been doing some tire testing, as you mentioned, been to 3 different tracks. They are Austin, Road Atlanta, and here. About 6 days of testing, and felt that they'd found some stuff. Brian Sellers behind the wheel doing a great job in front of one of the factory cars operated by Core Autosport, of course. Michael Christensen, the very impressive Dane behind the wheel right now. He has been another one of those guys like Andy Prio, learning these tracks for the first time and just been putting in some sensational performances.
See him flashing those lights again. He's aggravated. He wants to get by.
This is where it gets tricky with the different classes. There's an ebb and flow. They'll have strength in certain areas, particularly when you have one of the Pro-Am drivers in either a PC car or a GTD car. They don't maximize the potential of the race car all the way around the track, and that frustrates the guys behind them.
Definitely does. And you get then it throws you off your rhythm, and you start having to brake where you normally wouldn't be braking, and you know it's awkward.
There's no disrespect to the Pro-Am guy. I mean, they just don't have the experience to wring the neck of these race cars, and you got pro guys behind you, admittedly in a different class, and they're expecting you to get through the corner at the maximum potential of the race car, and it's just not going to happen.
Yep. Even happens among the pros if you have cars from different classes that have different strengths and weaknesses around the track. Earlier, Alex Brundle was saying, if I could just get by, I think I could gap him, but he's just strong enough in the right places to keep me from passing.
And that's what's aggravating. I mean, they all reach about the same top speed, but in different different parts of the straightaway. And then the braking zones are completely different depending on what you're driving.
Again. Look at it. And Brian's got Christensen all over his tail.
Yeah, that's why he's so frustrated. You know, Christensen's going to get by him if he can't get by the prototype.
Look at that. So Brian's got balked a little bit.
He's got a GTD car ahead of him.
Here comes Christensen, flies by. Look at that.
Yep. He used the pick, the Audi.
And I'll tell you what, now Brian's frustrated. He wants his way back. He wants his position
Well,
back.
that's a good point, because, I mean, there are serious bragging rights at stake here for the Falcon guys running that RSR as a private team. To race against the factory team and beat them would be a huge coup for them.
Yeah. It really would, and they've been fighting. I mean, in years past, they've been struggling for rear grip, but this year there's been a major shift in terms of the aero balance of these new Porsches towards getting more rear grip, so that the tire life is they can potentially double stint tires under certain conditions. But what it's meant is that it's really created a lot more load to the front end of the car, and the front end has given up. So that's what the teams are really working on, and getting the front end of this Porsche buttoned down as well as the back ends. It's all about balance, Bob. It's all about having the front and the rear working together, because if you have an imbalance, it's going to wear out those tires that are not working as well.
And see, now the 912 is being held up, and now that leaves him vulnerable to a pass by.
Shoes on the other foot now. Yeah,
absolutely.
Our crack meteorological team has taken a look at the weather radar, and we understand there are some pop-up thunderstorms, some heavy rain.
Rick Rat looking out the window?
Oh, right. He's also our CRAT statistical team and
well, the deal is when you get
finding team.
87 to 90% humidity and it's 90 degrees out, you're going to end up sooner or later getting a little bit of moisture from the sky.
Yeah, our high-tech meteorologist is when our booth producer goes to the restroom and comes back with a report.
Right. Stick a wet finger in the breeze. Anyway, if rain does arrive in the next 4 hours, that will make things really interesting. Right now, we're going to pause for 30 seconds so we can hear a special message from our friends at BMW. We'll be right back to the Glen. And just like that, back live at the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen. Stop number 6 of the TUDOR United SportsCar Championship and the third of 4 in the Tequila Patrón North American Endurance Cup. 30 is in. You see the scars of battle at the right rear.
Got to watch the exhaust systems on these Porsches. When you get a rear punch like that, you can bend the pipes in. Not too sure that it doesn't have a little damage to the exhaust.
Well, I'll tell you what, all drivers would love to have a win at the Glen on their resume. This guy, Kuba Jamaziak, has a win at Monaco on his.
Yeah.
He won the Super Cup race there 2 or 3 weeks ago, so that had to be a lot of fun for him.
I'd trade a win here for one of those. Monaco.
Just imagine hammering around the streets of the Principality in a Porsche. Yeah, buddy. I understand the number 90 is in the pits. There it is.
We talked about with 3 hours, 15 minutes on the clock. They didn't make that extra pit stop like the Action Express boys, so they're going to lose the lead of this motor race as we get to the bonus point stage for the Patrón Endurance Cup. So just one of those games you can play.
Just past top of the hour. Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader. I'm Bob Varsha. Darren Laws in the pit lane. This is the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen on Fox Sports 1, flag to flag and live. And Richard Westbrook is back on his way.
All routine, 4 tires, fuel.
Yep. Another double, so I think they're going to do 4 doubles essentially. Michael did a double to start. Westy will do one, then back to Michael, and then Westy will finish this thing out today.
Now let's take a look at the highlights of the race thus far. 53 cars starting, and when you have them running in 4 different classes, you're going to get contact.
Bus stop is always a problem area at the entry there. Stack up there between 2 GTD machines. Then a little battle here between the BMW and the Porsche, Dors.
Yeah, pushed wide there. It was good car control. Keep that car going straight.
Taking up where they left off at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in May. And then this, both drivers called it an accident as Alex Brundle got into the back of Michael Valiente.
On cold tires, then Michael in the walls a little bit further into the race to try to escape damage down through the bus stop. Then Sharpie.
Just got in there with too much speed at the apex and punched the Viper. Another good job of car control.
Really good. And watch this. Coop McNeil just loses the back end of that WeatherTech Porsche on the entry.
A lot of damage. Lower control arm broke.
And this, Memo Rojas, major rear end damage to the 01 Ganassi machine as he makes contact with a 73 in the final turn of this racetrack.
And that's been so. Oh, that was close.
That was really close.
That was our biggest wreck of the race so far. Hopefully it'll stop there.
And you notice nobody lifted as they plowed through that tire smoke from the spin.
Angelelli blowing through the red light there, had to serve a penalty. That has put them a lap off the lead of this race. Frustration there for Wayne Taylor and his crew.
Had a little trouble finding the red light and then finding the penalty box, but he is back underway. Here's a look at the prototype class leaderboard. Also, the top 7 cars in the overall running. In PC, Bruno Junqueira up front, David Ostella, the young Canadian driver, just behind him. They run 8th and 9th in the overall. Then comes the first of the GTLM, the 2 Corvettes, Jan Magnussen and Oliver Gavin, leading Kuno Whitmer and Dominic Farnbacher in the 2 Dodge Vipers before the first of the factory Porsches. And in GT Daytona, Marcus Paltala leads in the 94 Turner Motorsport Z4 BMW.
We're hearing, boys, that the 55 car of Bill Oberlin is getting a penalty, a stop and hold for 75 seconds for this incident with Schulteis. Here it is. Dive to the inside.
Yep.
Gets his nose in there as the PC comes back across, and you will get called for that. They're pretty consistent with their penalties.
And that was frustration to get. He wanted to buy that car so badly, and here he comes in, and this is going to be a stop and hold.
Championship leader, remember. It's going to hurt them big time. They've had a lot of little penalties this year, even though they lead the championship. They've probably lost a few points with contact penalties. Andy Priol lost the side view mirror at Long Beach. That cost them some time. They had pit stop problems with the pit lane speed limiter at Sebring. All of these little things over the course of a season can come back and haunt you at the banquet when you think, boy, we could have been going up there for the first place trophy.
Now you saw one of the Audis, the Flying Lizard red and silver Audi R8 LM. There is the 45 in the pits with damage. Darren?
Yeah, guys, it came down pit lane very, very slow. I thought possibly electrical or fuel or something, but I see damage on the right rear corner, and they've got the right rear wheel off, so I can't see, and they're good enough right now to tell you if it's suspension or what, but they're going to go to work, and it looks like it's going to be a while.
Oh, Greg Sandberg clouding the outside wall in turn 11.
Safer barrier over there. He definitely made contact. Glancing blow, so I don't think it did suspension.
Remember, this is the appointed car for Spencer Pumpelly and Nelson Canache Jr. in the thick of this championship chase, so this will hurt them big time.
Boy, this is a long stop and hold for Bill Oberlin in the BMW.
Stop and hold plus 75, that is huge. That is huge. That's basically a minute and a half, so that's almost a lap around this racetrack.
We can recover from this.
All right, guys, for sure it's a suspension piece. They've got a trailing arm for the lower right rear corner of the suspension. They're having to pull it off, heim joints, brackets, everything. This is going to be take a little time to get together.
Trying to get the mechanic to put a jack stand underneath the car while he's working on it. You see the guy put that chunk of wood in there, which is at the right height.
All about damage control at this point, literally and figuratively, in terms of the championship and getting the damage fixed on it. Little battle here between Dominic Farnbacher and Nick Tandy.
4th and 5th in GTLM. I'm watching the clock now. Less than 10 minutes from that 3-hour mark that will determine points in the Patrón Endurance Cup.
And it's identical points to what you'll get at the end of this race. 5 bonus points if you're leading your class at the 3-hour mark. And I know the Action Express boys played their strategy accordingly. We saw them pit with 3 hours, 42 minutes to go. They've been running about 45 minutes on a fuel stint. PC leader is in, Darren is there.
Yeah, routine stop here, Continental tires going on, driver staying in, and fuel going in. It looks very calm and very steady for these guys.
See, the light is turning a little gray and shadowy as clouds continue to build.
You see there that Bruno Junqueira has stayed in the car. Maybe they've lost radio communication or something, because that looks like the driver is that one of the RSA drivers? That could be a pit box next to them, actually, with that driver standing there.
Yeah, he was ready.
Well,
yeah, no, that's a different driver. I think it's an Audi driver.
Next pit down, yeah, it was next pit down. He was just standing at the far end of his pit, which made it look like he was in the other.
Well, you might want the other guy, especially if your radio isn't working well. You want the other guy suited up and ready to go in case the driver that you can't speak to pulls in and says, I got to get out.
Yeah, they normally do that anyway. I mean, if the car's coming in, the next driver should be ready, because you never know. Like you said, Bob, it could be a radio issue. It could also be, you know, a panic thing at the last moment.
Particularly if you got a 3-driver lineup. It's harder to do with 2 guys, because you want that guy to be able to walk away and take a bit of a break rather than being on deck, so to speak. But with 3 drivers, you should be able to rotate them around, so you always have your next guy up ready just in case.
Good fight there in PC. You also see the GTLM 1st and 2nd place cars, the 2 yellow Corvettes. Jan Magnussen continues to lead teammate Oliver Gavin.
Not by a great deal, about 10 car lengths.
No, they've been close together for quite a while now.
They have. Ollie got really close to him at one stage. I think traffic has had an effect on that gap right now, but great bounce back for the 08 car. They were involved in that big crash here yesterday. They're currently running in the 2nd spot. It'll be interesting to see if he'll actually assume first with his teammate, the 09 of Junqueira, just in pit lane. There he is, Chris Cumming, coming down to the inside. So nearly won the PC Championship last year. 3 wins in a row, and on the day we actually awarded him the championship, but when we looked at the rule, there was a car that hadn't completed the whole championship. They were not allowed to score points that day, and that bumped up another car to steal the championship away from Chris Cummings. So that has to be quite the roller coaster ride to think you've won the championship after the race and then find out the next morning you didn't get it. Mike Wash won it with the PR1 squad.
Big carbon fiber panel went cartwheeling down the straightaway coming off the last corner, and it's right in the middle of the road. I don't know what they'll do with that, or if they did see it or not. I saw it. Uh-oh, this is on track, isn't it? No, he's in pit lane.
No, he's in pit lane. Ryan Sellers brings it in. The crew falls on the car.
Driver change for sure.
Single stints.
Yep. In goes Wolf Hensler.
Just under an hour stint for these guys, so that's nice and manageable, and these guys are really fit. I know Brian really works hard on his fitness with mountain biking, and he said I had too much time to work on my fitness recently. He doesn't like being out of a race car in terms of competition that long. Obviously did a few test days along the way, but he was ready for some action here. It's going to get hot and heavy, though. The schedule really heats up here through the summer months.
See the plexiglass windows all the way around these cars, so tightly buttoned up aerodynamically. Temperatures inside, even with air conditioning on these cars, can reach up over 120 degrees on a sunny day like today at Watkins Glen.